Armin Meyer, born on December 1, 1961, gained global notoriety as a former German computer repair technician involved in a horrifying and twisted case that shook the world in 2001. When Meyer, utilizing the internet, connected with a willing victim, leading to an unimaginable sequence of events. It was the year 2001. A mere 7% of the population enjoyed the luxury of broadband access. The majority navigated the online realm through the familiar, albeit sluggish, dial-up connections. The internet, a far cry from its present-day sleekness, bore little resemblance to the expansive digital landscape we know today. Yet, undeterred by the limitations of the cyber era, a tech-savvy criminal forged ahead, resolutely pursuing his lifelong aspirations. Armin's painted a serene picture of his childhood during interviews, particularly when reminiscing about the unproblematic moments with his father. Fond memories of riding horses and constructing tree houses with his brothers. Armin's father, a policeman, saved up his earnings to purchase a mansion for the family in Wustfeld, located outside Rothenburg, Germany. Everything seemed well on the outside, but behind closed doors, a different narrative allegedly unfolded. There are whispers about Armin's mother, Waltraud, painting her as an exceptionally manipulative, possessive, and jealous spouse. Some even speculate that her decision to conceive Armin was a calculated move, strategically aimed at anchoring his father to the family unit. Rumors persist of a turbulent household marked by constant accusations, where heated arguments became the norm. In the most intense clashes, it is said that Waltraud allegedly went to extremes, issuing threats of harm, or perhaps something even more drastic if her husband ever contemplated leaving. This tumultuous domestic atmosphere, fueled by rumored threats and an alleged web of manipulation, may have served as the driving force behind Armin's father's decision to depart from the family, severing all ties for good. Seeking comfort from his loneliness, he found solace in books and his imagination. In the stories he read, he came across unsettling themes, like the idea of anthropophagy, as seen in tales like Hansel and Gretel and Robinson Crusoe. In a dark story about two brave orphans searching for a better life, things took an unexpected turn. They met a sinister figure who, through magic and deceit, trapped them in a web of lies and anthropophagy. Armin was particularly fascinated with the chapter about fattening up Hansel to cook and devour him. After the abandonment, his mother became the dominant parent, who would often admonish him in public and insisted in accompanying him everywhere. Meyer, lacking a father figure, created an imaginary brother called Frankie, through whom he vented his first desires, as Frankie would listen to Meyer, something his mother never did, and he started developing odd tendencies, such as fantasizing about devouring his friends. Meyer would occasionally bring young women to meet his mother, but they frequently faced criticism for not being deemed suitable for her son. Ironically, this was a fortunate turn for the women, as Meyer's true interest lay in consuming them. During his adolescent years, he became drawn to websites that promoted his desires. Following his mother's death, Meyer became increasingly committed to fulfilling his desires. He boldly placed a public advertisement seeking a willing volunteer who would not only consent to be terminated, but also participate in the grotesque act of anthropophagy. Operating under the aliases Anthrophagus or Frankie on the cafe, Meyer meticulously navigated the online realm, searching for individuals with a shared fascination for anthropophagic fetishes, particularly within the gay community. During this macabre quest, Meyer, now with unrestricted control over his expansive property, spent an entire year immersed in the chilling narratives of serial biographies. Despite numerous encounters with men in hotel rooms for role-playing sessions, none were willing to proceed with the actual act. Notably, Meyer even rejected a man's request to be beaten to termination, deeming it weird, according to the Daily Mail. However, on March 6, 2001, a significant turn of events occurred when Meyer engaged in a conversation with a user named Cater99. This individual expressed a desire for his appendage to be and to meet his demise. That user was Siemens engineer Bernd Jürgen Brandes, a 43-year-old actual engineer, and he was prepared to be terminated. He even mentioned he wanted his skull to be used as an ashtray after his death. According to Harper's, he agreed to Mawe's proposal, which read in part, "You won't be the last, hopefully. I've already considered catching a young person from the street." Armin Meyer and Bernd Brandes continued exchanging fervent messages online until March 9th, when Brandes took the day off work. He had liquidated all his personal belongings, including a sports car, and wiped his hard drive before the momentous day. He purchased a one-way ticket to Kassel, where Mawe awaited to drive him to his house. After a stop at a pharmacy for painkillers, the men arrived at Mawe's residence and engaged in intimate acts. Brandes briefly hesitated, but then ingested 20 sleeping pills, cough syrup, and a bottle of schnapps to fulfill the agreement. Mawe ensured to document the grotesque ordeal, with Brandes uttering the chilling words, "Now do it." The subsequent events have only been witnessed by state officials and daring internet sleuths. Initially, Mawe attempted to fulfill Brandes' request to bite off the appendage but was unsuccessful. Resorting to a kitchen knife, he tried feeding it to Brandes, yet it proved too tough to chew. Mawe then resorted to frying it with salt, pepper, wine, and garlic, incorporating Brandes' own fat into the macabre feast. Ultimately, Bernd Brandes managed to consume only one bite. The incessant loss of blood caused him to drift in and out of consciousness. After accidentally burning the severed private part, Mawe ground it up and fed it to his dog. He then drew Brandes a bath and retreated to read a Star Trek book, checking on Brandes every 15 minutes. While cannibalism wasn't a crime in Germany at the time, murder was. Mawe hoped for Brandes to regain consciousness, but then he ended up fatally striking him in the neck. Armin carefully suspended his lifeless body on a meat hook to facilitate draining. Subsequently, he disassembled it on a butcher's block, segmenting the flesh into conveniently sized portions. "I decorated the table with nice candles," said Mawe of his first meal. "I took out my best dinner service and fried a piece of rump steak. Made what I call princess potatoes and sprouts. After I prepared my meal, I ate it." Armin Meyer kept his promise to Bernd Brandes and buried his skull and other inedible body parts in the garden. Over the next 20 months, the Rotenburg cannibal consumed 44 pounds of his flesh. Mawe had also recorded all 4 hours of the mutilation, which authorities would enter into evidence for one of Germany's most shocking post-war trials. Mawe was apprehended on December 10, 2002, despite continuing to seek out victims online until an Austrian student reported him to the police. He was finally caught. When officers entered his home, they discovered a false bottom in his freezer containing pounds of flesh. While Mawe claimed it was wild boar meat, the officers also uncovered the footage of his heinous act. Though his actions suggested insanity and Mawe was diagnosed with schizoid personality disorder, he was deemed fit to stand trial, according to NBC. The legal proceedings began on December 3, 2003, resulting in Armin Mawe being convicted of manslaughter on January 30, 2004. Sentenced to 8 years and 6 months in prison, he has since adopted a vegetarian lifestyle. Ultimately, a German court retried Armin Mawe in April 2005 after prosecutors argued he should have been tried for murder. He was sentenced to life in prison on May 10, 2006, but Mawe has recently been allowed to wander the streets in disguise as part of his rehabilitation. A quick heads up. Once you see some of these photos, you can't unsee them, so just brace yourself. Poitiers, France, 19th century, a seemingly calm town hiding a tale of horror and torment. At the center of it all stood Blanche Monier, born on March 1st, 1849, into an affluent, respected family. Blanche's beauty was legendary, a bewitching allure that drew admirers like moths to a flame. Marriage proposals came pouring in, but little did she know her life was about to descend into the darkest depths of human cruelty. In the year 1876, at the tender age of 27, Blanche's heart was stolen by an older lawyer, a man of intellect and charm, but her mother, Louise, was having none of it. Louise, a woman of unwavering determination and an extremely dark heart, saw the lawyer as penniless, a union she'd never allow. In a twisted fit of rage and desperation, Louise hatched a plan. She locked her own flesh and blood in a tiny, lightless dungeon concealed within her attic. There, Blanche would be condemned to endure the next 25 nightmarish years of her existence. As the sands of time flowed on, Louise and Blanche's brother Marcel continued their lives, hiding behind the facade of a grieving family, while Blanche's life transformed into a living, breathing horror story. Friends and neighbors remained blissfully ignorant of the unimaginable atrocities occurring right under their noses. Even Blanche's own father, lacking in assertiveness, allowed his wife to take charge. Tragically, the lawyer Blanche loved met an untimely demise in 1885, forever unaware of the gruesome fate that had befallen her. Blanche's mental health, trapped within the confines of her own home, deteriorated steadily. She began experiencing hallucinations and refused to eat in the shadow of existence and under the relentless dominance of her mother. Blanche endured her suffering in solitude, hour after hour, minute after minute. The household servant carried on with her duties as usual. To what extent she was aware of the situation and was complicit in it remains uncertain. An anonymous letter sent to the pair's Attorney General on May 23, 1901, would expose the nightmarish truth. The letter read, "Monsieur Attorney General, I have the honor to inform you of an exceptionally serious occurrence. I speak of a spinster who is locked within Madame Monier's house, half-starved and living in putrid litter for the past 25 years. In a word, in her own filth." Authorities stormed the house, and what they uncovered would scar the souls for eternity. Blanche was found in an unspeakable state, her body frail and caked in filth. Insects swarmed around her, and her prison resembled a chamber of horror that defied description. 25 desolate years devoid of sunlight or hope. One officer at the scene painted a picture of the horror that awaited them. He said, "The unfortunate woman was lying completely naked on a rotten straw mattress. All around her was formed a sort of crust made from excrement, fragments of meat, vegetable, fish, and rotten bread. And we also saw bugs running across Mademoiselle Monier's bed. The air was so unbreathable, the odor given off by the room was so rank that it was impossible for us to stay any longer to proceed with our investigation." Louise was arrested but fell gravely ill, succumbing just 15 days later. Marcel faced a trial but escaped conviction, declared mentally incapacitated. But our story doesn't end here. Blanche's life, even after rescue, was plagued with severe mental health issues. Diagnosed with an array of disorders including anorexia nervosa, schizophrenia, exhibitionism, and coprophilia, she found her final refuge in a psychiatric hospital where she eventually found peace, passing away on October 13, 1913. A courageous man named Vladimir Kamarov found himself in the middle of a perilous mission. The date was April 23, 1967, and the Soviet Union had chosen him as the pilot for the Soyuz 1 mission. From the outset, Komarov was acutely aware that this journey into the cosmos was destined to be his final one. The Soyuz spacecraft had revealed its vulnerabilities during rigorous testing, displaying issues and flaws that left no doubt that any individual embarking on this mission might not return to Earth. The dangers were unmistakable, and the expectations from the Soviet High Command were relentless. Adding to the weight of this decision was his close friendship with cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin, the trailblazer who had become the first human to journey into space. Gagarin stood in line for the mission if Kamarov was to step back. It was a moral conundrum of cosmic proportions, yet Kamarov, resolute and unwavering, made the ultimate sacrifice. He chose to confront the looming peril himself, sparing his friend. As the Soyuz 1 set off on its mission, space revealed its unforgiving nature, and catastrophe struck during the re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. The spacecraft's parachute, the last hope for a safe landing, failed. Kamarov and the Soyuz 1 pierced through the Earth's atmosphere at an incredible speed, heading for an inevitable disaster. In those last heart-wrenching moments, Kamarov faced a terrible fate. The fiery descent of the Soyuz became his final resting place. He perished in the flames as the spacecraft plummeted into Earth, becoming the first human to meet such a tragic fate in space. Even before his ill-fated mission, Vladimir Kamarov had a premonition of his destiny. He had an unyielding sense of duty, and maybe an awareness of the sacrifice he was making, knowing that his chances of returning safely were slim. He made a powerful statement. He asked for an open casket funeral as a way to force his superiors to confront the consequences of their decisions. It was an ordinary day for Dorothy Louise Downey, a day she thought she would spend helping her daughter, but fate had other ideas. Dorothy Louise Downey, 83, was a kind and devoted mother who, despite being in her golden years, was thoughtful enough to help her daughter move home. The two-bedroom home itself was located on Park Avenue in Salem, South Carolina, and was an extraordinary 100 years old, built in 1920 and was listed as in poor condition. As she was walking through the house, she plummeted through the rotten floorboards. Her concerned daughter rushed to find her. Her daughter crawled under the house to locate her mother, but to her surprise, she could not find her. Panicked, her daughter called the police and fire department. Both services arrived shortly after and located her mother in the well shaft beneath the property. The Salem Fire Department and Oconee Emergency Services removed Dorothy Downey from the well at around 5:45 p.m. The local community was in shock, and Facebook messages were sincerely sympathetic. A mum of two, and a well-known influencer and pharmacist from Russia, decided to celebrate her 29th birthday in a pool and sauna complex in the Russian capital of Moscow. A day that should have been full of memories will never be forgotten, as this was the day one person's mistake would change many lives. On the day in question, party guests were more than excited, drinking and enjoying the atmosphere, partygoers feeding off each other's energy. Everyone was having the time of their lives. Ekaterina's husband, Valentine Denko, 32, also known as Valia, was an IT specialist by profession. Wanting to impress the party guests and make the day a lasting memory for all, he decided to pour 25 kg or 55 pounds of dry ice into the sauna pool. Dry ice, composed of solid carbon dioxide, undergoes sublimation, transforming directly from a solid to a gas. It finds applications in generating theatrical smoke and preserving perishables during transit. Valentine's mistake to pour dry ice into the pool would be his last. At first, party guests were astonished and were excited to see the chemical effect take action, but shortly after, guests started coughing, fainting, and some even experienced chemical burns. Two party guests, Natalia Monakova and Yuri Alfarov, both 25, died, and as for Valentine, he also paid the ultimate price with his life, later dying at the hospital. Ekaterina was initially reported to be among the dead, but that was incorrect. The mother of two survived and posted a video from her bed saying, "I am alive. I am behind the doors of an intensive care ward. I don't know who died. Valia is in the intensive care. I don't know what state he is in," she said, unaware of her husband's situation. After being released from hospital and learning of her husband's death, she posted another video stating, "Valia is not with us anymore. Or Natasha, or Yura. I can't tell you anything else. I did not cry yesterday. Today I just exploded. I thought it was not true. It was a nightmare. Nastia, her daughter, woke up today had stated, "Where is Daddy?" I do not know what to say to her. She is asking me, "Why are you crying?" It was later learned that the 3 who died were in the water with the catastrophic chemical reaction. Reports said Natalia and Yuri died from pulmonary edemas after breathing the gas. Suspicion arose as one expert asked if it was normal dry ice or contained another substance that worsened the poisoning. Dry ice solid carbon dioxide, commonly known as dry ice, generates a denser-than-air vapor upon interaction with water. In elevated concentrations, it has the potential to elevate carbon dioxide levels in the bloodstream, impeding the flow of oxygen to essential organs. This presents a risk to health as it may lead to oxygen deprivation in vital bodily functions. "32-year-old Klil Kim-hee was enjoying his day in a villa, enjoying the warm embrace of a swimming pool. He had been invited to a villa party by his marketing company held in the town of Karmeh Yosef. Enjoying the amenities at the villa, Klil decided to enter the pool, swimming about and enjoying the atmosphere. Suddenly, with no warning, the pool sank in on itself, revealing a massive sinkhole, a whopping 13 meters or 43 feet deep, around the height of a 4-story building. 1 minute, Klil Kim-hee was alive and well, the next, gone. Rescue workers used special cameras attached to their helmets to find Kim-hee's body deep underground. The operation was tricky because there were worries that other tunnels connected to the sinkhole might collapse. To stay safe, they built a support structure to stop the surface from caving in while they looked for him. A witness recounted, "The water level suddenly started receding and a hole opened up, creating a vortex that swept 2 people inside. According to another person interviewed by the news, the swirling vortex quickly engulfed Kim-hee within seconds. Fortunately, there were only 6 people in the pool at that time, potentially preventing more casualties." After further investigations, it was revealed that the owners of the villa did not apply for a permit to build the swimming pool. If they had done so, it would have been denied, as the infrastructure at the site was not suitable. The couple who owned the villa, identified as Nathan and Rachel Meller, were arrested on suspicion of operating a business without a license, money laundering, and negligent manslaughter. And it was also noted that the home is located within 50 meters of an underground cave. As we conclude this journey, remember that the line between the serene and the sinister is often thin. In the hushed corridors of our routines, unseen dangers lurk. The specter of accidents, like ghosts in the night, reminds us of life's delicate balance. So tread carefully, for in the shadows of the mundane, a chilling reality awaits. May your steps be cautious, and may you navigate the unknown with a shiver of awareness.
Also breaking tonight, hours of new video are released revealing more about a woman found dead in a hotel freezer.
Kenneka Jenkins' life story is a tapestry of personal attributes, aspirations, and connections that shaped her identity. She was born on May 27, 1998, in Chicago, Illinois. Kenneka's journey unfolded within the heart of Chicago, nurtured within the embrace of a close-knit family. It was her mother, Teresa Martin, with whom she shared a profound and unbreakable bond. This maternal connection would later stand as a testament to the strength of their relationship. Kenneka was not just another individual, but a force that could light up the room. Her cheerful and outgoing demeanor was the hallmark of her personality, endearing her to friends and family alike. Her mere presence had the ability to dispel gloom and uplift spirits, earning her a special place in the hearts of those who knew her. Nursing, in particular, ignited a fire in her, fueled by a genuine desire to make a positive impact on the lives of others. On September 8th of the same year, Kenneka told her mother she was going to go out with friends. She told her they would be going bowling and then to a movie to celebrate her getting a job at a nursing home. Kenneka drove her mother's car and left the house around 11 p.m. That was the last time Teresa saw her daughter. Instead of opting for a bowling alley or a movie screening that evening, Kenneka and her trio of companions decided to attend a gathering on the 9th floor of the Crowne Plaza Chicago O'Hare Hotel, situated in Rosemont, Illinois. According to security footage, the group was captured entering through a side access point at approximately 1 a.m. One of the acquaintances who joined the gathering observed Jenkins exhibiting a swaying motion as they shared a hug. Numerous attendees stated they saw her consuming alcohol, although there were no sightings of her using marijuana or any other substances. According to another witness, Jenkins was not displaying her typical behavior. At 1:30, Kanika Jenkins sent a text to her sister. It was the last time anyone would hear from her. At around 3 a.m., the girls made the choice to leave the party. Once they reached the hotel lobby, Kanika suddenly realized she had left her personal items, including her car keys and cell phone, in their room. According to various accounts, some state that the group left her on her own in the lobby, while others maintained they left her standing on the 9th floor hallway near the elevator. Wherever they decided to leave her, Kanika's 3 friends left her alone. They went back to the party to retrieve her belongings and were absent for approximately 10 to 20 minutes. Upon their return to the spot where they had last seen Kanika, she had vanished without a trace. The concerned friends launched a thorough search of the hotel in a desperate attempt to locate her, but their efforts yielded no results. It was between 4 and 4:30 a.m. when they ultimately made the difficult decision to contact Kanika's mother. They informed Teresa that they could no longer locate Kanika. Concerned and perplexed, they inquired if perhaps Kanika had decided to head home on her own. Upon discovering she had not, they promptly drove to Kanika's residence, bringing her mother back to join in the search efforts. Teresa, understandably worried, asked about her daughter's alcohol consumption. Her friend informed her Kanika had consumed only a single drink. Teresa expressed her concern, noting that Kanika didn't tolerate alcohol very well, and one drink could affect her adversely. In a brief moment, she was spotted walking alongside others within the hotel's corridors. Subsequent surveillance footage unveiled Jenkins unsteadily navigating near the front desk at 3:20 a.m. Kanika exhibited severe signs of intoxication, displaying evident confusion and stumbling clumsily, even colliding with the walls. Subsequently, the police initiated a second search team tasked with retracing her last known movements. Kanika had entered an elevator, descending to the lower levels of the hotel. She wandered down the hallways. Despite the kitchen's non-operating status due to the ongoing renovations, the freezer remained operational. It served as additional storage for the upcoming restaurant in the hotel. Tragically, Kanika was discovered lifeless around 1 a.m. on September 10, 2017, inside the freezer unit. She had unkempt hair, and one of her shoes was missing. She had been dressed in torn jeans, a crop jean jacket, and a white bra. Her body was found in a frozen state, as described by the police. Her journey eventually led her to the kitchen, which was undergoing renovations and was out of service. The last known footage of Kanika captures her walking through this kitchen, heading back in the direction of a double freezer. One video doesn't explicitly show her entering the freezer. Speculation suggests that she opened its doors, entered, and tragically couldn't find her way out, passing as an accident. The autopsy report revealed the absence of illegal substances in her system, but her blood alcohol level measured 0.112. Additionally, traces of topiramate medication prescribed for epilepsy and migraines were detected, although she had never been prescribed this drug. Combining the drug with alcohol can intensify the effects and accelerate hypothermia. Lesions found in Jenkins' stomach confirmed the presence of hypothermia, although her autopsy noted brain swelling. This condition was not linked to the cause of death. On the same day, the Rosemont Police Department issued a statement. While there was no foul play suspected, the investigation remains ongoing. The accounts of Jenkins's friends remained inconsistent regarding the events of the party. In 2018, the family's attorney, Jeffrey Fieger, filed a $50 million lawsuit against the hotel and other parties. Fieger presented photographs of the freezer door, suggesting it had an external lock button, raising the possibility that someone could have inadvertently locked the freezer door. However, this assertion was contradicted by security camera footage. Furthermore, the photograph didn't appear to be of the actual freezer door, which had a latch but seemingly no lock, an intact white circular handle on the inside, which would have allowed a person to exit unaided. Speculation ranged from accidental overdose to intentional harm inflicted by others. The social media videos and images from the party were analysed to try and find evidence supporting these claims. A hotel cover-up. Some conspiracy theories proposed that the hotel staff or management were involved in her death and attempted to cover it up. This was often fueled by questions about the accessibility of the freezer, surveillance footage, and the initial handling of the investigation. Social media clues. The extensive use of social media during and after the party led to theories that clues or evidence about her death could be found in the videos and live streams that were posted online. People scrutinized the videos for hidden details or signs that might shed light on what happened. Some theories speculate that law enforcement was somehow involved in her death or the subsequent investigation. This was often fueled by mistrust in the initial conclusion of the investigation and concern about transparency. Organ trafficking, a particular far-fetched conspiracy theory, suggested that Kanika was a victim of organ trafficking. This theory, whilst lacking any credible evidence, gained some traction due to its sensational nature. On Christmas Eve 1945, a horrendous fire swept through the Soders residence in Fayetteville, West Virginia, forever changing the lives of the Soders family. George Soders, a proud Italian immigrant, and his wife Jenny, and 9 of their 10 children occupied the residence. Circumstances surrounding the tragic fire led to the surviving Soders family to believe that the missing children might still be alive. The Soders were a close-knit family who had left Italy to build a new life in America. George had a successful trucking business in West Virginia, and they were known as one of the most respected middle-class families in the area. However, their outspoken criticism of the Italian dictator Benito Mussolini had created tension in the immigrant community. In the week leading up to the fire, strange events occurred that fueled the family's suspicion. An insurance salesman, angered by George's anti-Mussolini remarks, threatened him, stating that his house would go up in smoke and that his children will be destroyed. A mysterious car parked along the main highway often watched the young Soders children as they returned from school. On that Christmas Eve, the family celebrated their older daughter Marion, surprising her younger sister with new toys. When the children asked to stay up later than usual, Jenny allowed it, on the condition that the older boys complete their chores. At 1 a.m., Jenny was awakened by a loud bang on the roof. She smelled smoke and discovered that a fire erupted in George's office, seemingly caused by an electrical fault. Frantic efforts to save the children in the attic were in vain, as the fire quickly consumed the stairwell. Despite desperate attempts to reach the fire department, they couldn't save the 5 missing children. The fire chief's response was delayed, and their own trucks failed to start. After the fire investigators found no remains, this left the Soders to question the official explanation. The lack of bones, the persistence of the children's Christmas lights, and the unusual discovery of a missing ladder raised doubts. The family initiated a request for answers, hiring a private investigator and offering a reward for any information that would help them find their children. They put up billboards, but the case remained unsolved. Rumors and sightings added to the mystery, and witnesses had claimed to had seen the children in the car during the fire, and a hotel owner in Charleston reported encountering them with 2 Italian men and women. The Soders also received a photograph that they believed was their missing son, Louise. Efforts to uncover the story continued for decades. The Soders remained convinced that their children were possibly taken by the Sicilian mafia as retribution for George's anti-fascist views. Despite the lack of definitive evidence, determination to find their lost children never wavered. As the years passed, they continued to publicize the story and investigate leads using modern forums and media coverage to keep the case alive. While some believe the children perished in the fire, others remained open to the possibility that the Sodder children escaped, leaving the story of the disappearance shrouded in mystery, much like that Christmas Eve night in 1945. Asher Degree was born on August 5, 1990, in Shelby, North Carolina, USA. She went missing at the tender age of 9, under circumstances that continued to baffle investigators and the public alike. The fateful morning of February 14, 2000 was marked by heavy rain and howling winds. Inexplicably, Asher packed her book bag and left her family home situated north of Shelby, embarking on a journey that would raise more questions than answers. As she began to walk by the North Carolina Highway 18, several passing motorists noticed her. One of them turned around trying to offer help. But when the vehicle drew near, Asher fled into a nearby wooded area, leaving everyone bewildered. Morning light revealed her absence to her distraught parents, and a frantic search commenced that very day. Personal items were found near the spot she had last been seen, but the enigma deepened. It wasn't until a year and a half later that her book bag still packed emerged from a construction site by the Highway 18. A billboard now stands at the point where she ran into the woods, a plea for help to find her. The Degree family life was one of close-knit simplicity. Along with her brother named O'Brien, she lived a life centered around family, church, and school, shielded from outside influence. They had no computer in their home due to her family's protective nature. Asher, a fourth grader in elementary school, experienced a regular day leading up to her mysterious disappearance. She played in a basketball game which her team lost. Though she was upset initially, she seemed to have recovered quickly, supporting her brother in his game later. The events of that fateful night were inexplicable. Asher and her brother went to bed, but shortly after, the lights went out due to a car accident nearby. The power was restored at 12:30 a.m. with both children appearing to be asleep in their beds. However, Asher mysteriously left her bedroom between 3:45 and 4:15, and witnesses saw her walking along the rain-soaked highway. The subsequent search was extensive and intensive. Investigators initially believed that Asher had ran away, but couldn't find a clear reason for her to do so, especially given her young age and content within her family. Years later, authorities concluded that Asher had likely been abducted in 2015. The FBI made some efforts to solve the case, offering a substantial amount as an award for information. The mystery surrounding Asher's disappearance garnered national media attention, with TV shows and documentaries highlighting her story. Asher's family remains a strong recess in the public eye, hosting annual walks to remember their daughter and keep her memory alive. They persist their search for answers, clinging onto the hope that one day Asher will walk back through their door. Despite the passage of time, the disappearance of Asher continues to haunt the public's imagination. Adam Robert Johnson's journey in the world of ice hockey was a tapestry woven with triumphs, challenges, and ultimately, tragedy. Born on June 22, 1994, in the heart of Grand Rapids, Minnesota, to Susan and Davy Johnson, his destiny as a hockey player began to take shape. The tragic demise of Adam Robert Johnson on that fateful October 28, 2023, sent shockwaves through the hockey world, casting a somber shadow over his promising career. As the Nottingham Panthers faced off against the Sheffield Steelers at Utilita Arena, the game took a harrowing turn that would etch Johnson's name into the annals of tragic sports incidents. In the 35th minute of the match, chaos erupted on the ice. A collision with an opposing player, Matt Petgrave of the Sheffield Steelers, led to an unimaginable horror. Petgrave's skate blade inadvertently sliced Johnson's neck, causing a catastrophic injury. The audible gasp from the spectators was swiftly followed by an eerie silence, as the gravity of the situation unfolded before their eyes. Bleeding profusely, Johnson, with sheer determination, attempted to skate toward the team bench. The chilling sight of him desperately seeking help while grappling with the severity of his injury sent shockwaves through the arena. However, the cruel reality of the situation soon became apparent, and Johnson collapsed on the unforgiving ice. In a poignant display of solidarity, fellow players formed a protective ring around Johnson as paramedics rushed onto the ice to attend to his grievous wound. The protective sheets were raised to shield the traumatic scene from the eyes of the spectators. As players left the ice and the audience was ushered out of the arena, the gravity of the incident lingered in the air like a haunting spectre. Transported to Sheffield's Northern General Hospital, Johnson's life hung in the balance. Medical professionals worked tirelessly to save him, but tragically, their efforts were in vain. At the age of 29, Adam Robert Johnson, who had brought joy to fans across continents with his hockey prowess, succumbed to the fatal wound inflicted on that ill-fated night. The news of Johnson's death was a devastating blow to the hockey community. His untimely demise prompted an outpouring of grief, not only from teammates, competitors, and fans, but also from the broader sports fraternity. The shock of losing a vibrant and talented athlete reverberated worldwide. As the grieving process unfolded, questions arose about the circumstances leading to Johnson's tragic end. Teammate Weston Michaud speculated that Petgrave's actions were unintentional, emphasizing that any suggestions otherwise were mistaken. The Nottingham Panthers, in an official statement, characterized Johnson's death as a freak accident, adding an element of complexity to an already heart-wrenching narrative. The legal aftermath saw the South Yorkshire Police launching an investigation into Johnson's death. In England, where the consequences of actions leading to death can range from murder to constructive manslaughter, the investigation aimed to untangle the intricacies of the incident. An autopsy report later confirmed that Johnson's cause of death was indeed the result of the fatal wound to his neck. On November 14th, 17 days after the incident, the South Yorkshire Police announced the arrest of a man on suspicion of manslaughter in connection with Johnson's death. The suspect was released on police bail, leaving the legal proceedings to unfold amidst the backdrop of grief and unanswered questions. Adam Robert Johnson's tragic end served as a catalyst for a broader examination of player safety in the game of hockey. His legacy became intertwined with a push for enhanced safety measures, prompting changes in regulations, such as the introduction of mandatory neck guards in various leagues. As the hockey community grappled with the loss of a young talent, Johnson's story became a poignant reminder of the fragility of life and the need for continued efforts to ensure the safety of athletes in the pursuit of their passion. The legacy of Adam Robert Johnson extends beyond the rink, leaving an indelible mark on the collective consciousness of the sports world. The Aadi Festival is a vibrant celebration in Tamil Nadu dedicated to goddess Amman. Held in the month of Aadi, it involves special prayers and rituals at temples. One unique aspect is the preparation of a special porridge called kuj, made from freshly harvested rice, symbolizing gratitude for abundance. The festival is not just about religious observances, but also a time for communities to come together for processions, prayers, and communal meals. It's a lively and culturally rich event, showcasing the spirit of Tamil tradition and unity. In the heart of Madurai, amidst the fervor of the Aadi festival, a deeply moving and sorrowful incident occurred, claiming the life of a dedicated man named Muthukumar. On Tuesday, August 2nd, as the city bustled with preparations for the festivities, the air thick with the aroma of traditional porridge, Muthukumar met a fatal end during the meticulous preparations for the Muthu Mariamman temple devotees. Muthukumar, a 54-year-old integral member of the organizing committee responsible for the temple festival, was captured by a vigilant CCTV camera stationed near the temple premises. The footage, both harrowing and heartbreaking, revealed the unfolding of a tragic sequence of events. Muthukumar, appearing unsteady, stumbled and lost his balance, a moment that tragically led to his inadvertent descent into a pot filled with boiling porridge. As the footage unveiled the shocking incident, onlookers nearby attempted to warn Muthukumar, sensing the impending danger. Despite their swift reactions, the relentless force of the boiling porridge made rescue efforts all the more challenging. The gathered crowd, in a desperate attempt to free him from the scalding liquid, collectively overturned the pot. The dramatic scene concluded with Muthukumar being extracted from the vessel, but the damage had been done. He suffered severe burn injuries, totaling 65% of his body. Promptly rushed to the Rajaji government hospital, Muthukumar's life hung in the balance as medical professionals fought against the odds to save him. Despite their unwavering efforts, the severity of his injuries proved insurmountable, and a few hours later, Muthukumar succumbed to his painful fate. The police, faced with the tragedy, took immediate action, initiating an investigation under Section 174 of the Criminal Procedure Code. This section allows for an inquiry and report on cases related or unexplained deaths. In a conversation with TNM, a police officer confirmed the filing of an FIR, marking the official commencement of the investigation. Further complicating the narrative, it came to light that the incident actually transpired nearly a week earlier. The CCTV footage, leaked on Tuesday, August 2nd, added a layer of complexity to the unfolding story. The timestamp on the footage unequivocally placed the accident on Friday, July 25th, revealing a delay in the public awareness of the tragic event. Muthukumar's wife, grappling with the sudden loss, filed a complaint at the Subramaniapuram police station. She shared the painful revelation that her husband, in addition to being an active participant in the festival preparations, suffered from epilepsy. It was during an unfortunate episode of fits near the pots that he lost his balance and tragically fell into the boiling porridge. In 1989, Michael Anderson Godwin, a convicted murderer, narrowly avoided state execution when his attorney succeeded in having his original death sentence reduced to life in prison. The incident occurred at the Central Correctional Institute in South Carolina. During a routine check, officers discovered Godwin dead in his cell, with severe burns to his mouth and teeth. The state corrections spokesman, Francis Archibald, revealed that the 28-year-old inmate was attempting to repair a pair of earphones to watch TV when the accident transpired. In a strange twist of fate, Godwin had electrocuted himself while sitting on a steel toilet in his cell. Frank Barron, the county coroner, officially declared Godwin's death an accident. The irony of the situation was unmistakable, as Godwin, who had previously escaped death by the electric chair, met his end on an improvised electric seat. Despite the grim circumstances, Godwin had been considered a model prisoner at the time. He had earned 2 college degrees during his incarceration and aspired to work with young people upon potential parole. Godwin's criminal history revealed a prior conviction for robbing a woman at knife point, which led to imprisonment. While on work release, he committed a heinous act by beating 24-year-old Mary Elizabeth Royam to death with an electric iron in her West Columbia apartment. Originally convicted of murder and other charges, Godwin's attorney later succeeded in clearing him of some charges. Consequently, Godwin's death sentence was downgraded to life in prison. The peculiar circumstances surrounding Godwin's demise prompted inquiries into how he had managed to turn his toilet into a lethal electric chair. According to information from the U.S. National Library of Medicine, the human body is naturally resistant to the flow of electricity. However, this resistance primarily operates at the skin level, and the seriousness of an electric shock depends on how the current enters the body. In Godwin's case, it was theorized that while handling a wire, he remained safe. However, by putting the wire in his mouth, he may have unwittingly provided a direct pathway for the electricity to travel through his body, acting as a conduit between the wire and the metal toilet. This unfortunate decision led to serious damage to his tissues, nervous system, and potentially triggered fatal complications such as ventricular fibrillation. In a twist of fate, Michael Godwin inadvertently turned his steel toilet into a makeshift electric chair, ultimately resulting in his own tragic demise. An ordinary night turned into a nightmare for the Bush family in 2003, when a sinkhole of unimaginable proportions swallowed their home. Jeffrey Bush, an unsuspecting resident, found himself in a life-altering situation when a colossal 100-foot sinkhole opened beneath his bedroom. It was Jeremy, Jeffrey's brother, who first heard the screams for help echoing through the house. Without a moment's hesitation, Jeremy raced to his brother's aid, only to be confronted by the gaping maw of the sinkhole, rapidly devouring the room. Despite Jeremy's frantic efforts, the rising dirt levels obscured any trace of Jeffrey. In a desperate attempt to save his brother, Jeremy leaped into the sinkhole, but the Earth's relentless grasp had already claimed Jeffrey. The chilling incident unfolded in mere seconds. The following day brought a grim realization. Engineers deemed the property too perilous for further rescue attempts. The house, now a perilous site, was razed to the ground and the sinkhole filled with gravel to prevent further catastrophe. A decade passed, shrouding the incident in a haunting mystery. Jeffrey Bush was never found, and he was eventually presumed dead. Yet the story took an eerie turn when the sinkhole, seemingly dormant, reopened years later. Fenced off from the public, the sinkhole became a chilling reminder of the inexplicable forces lurking beneath the Earth's surface. In Jeremy's own words, he recounted the heart-wrenching moment, saying, "The floor was still giving in, and the dirt was still going down, but I didn't care. He was screaming my name. I could swear I heard him hollering my name to help him. I wanted to save my brother, but I just couldn't do nothing." The incident not only left a family shattered, but also raised questions about the unpredictability and dangers associated with sinkholes, particularly in regions like Florida, where the limestone terrain makes them a common geological phenomenon. Elizabeth, a 60-year-old care worker from Wolverhampton, sought solace in the Welsh countryside, choosing a quaint villa near Machynlleth for her retreat. Little did she know that her visit would transform into a chilling enigma that would captivate the town's imagination for years to come. It was on a quiet September night in 2017 that Elizabeth's ordinary holiday took a turn. Awaking in the darkness, she found herself compelled to navigate the shadows of her temporary abode. In an inexplicable twist of fate, she entered an airing cupboard undressed, where the oppressive silence masked the ominous events that were about to unfold. The door, seemingly possessed by an unseen force, snapped shut behind her, ensnaring Elizabeth in a lightless cocoon. Panic set in as she realized the door handle had betrayed her, leaving her trapped in a space that offered no solace, only the cold touch of uncertainty. As the night unfolded, Elizabeth's desperate attempts to free herself turned the once cozy villa into a chamber of anguish. Shelves were torn off, and copper piping became her makeshift tool in a battle against the unseen. The walls bore witness to her struggle as she sought an escape route from her metallic prison. Unbeknownst to Elizabeth, her fervent efforts had unintended consequences. A burst pipe unleashed a cascade of water, transforming her struggle into a fight against the encroaching chill of hypothermia. The very elements that should have nourished life now conspired against her, leaving the air thick with tension. A week passed in eerie silence until caretakers, responding to an unusual leak, stumbled upon a scene that defied explanation. Elizabeth Isherwood's lifeless form lay in the airing cupboard, and the villa, once a sanctuary of peace, now held the secrets of her inexplicable demise. The community, once bound by the charm of Machynlleth, found itself gripped by an unsettling tale of misadventure. The enigma of Elizabeth's journey into the dark recesses of the airing cupboard left a lingering unease, a reminder that even in the most idyllic settings, the shadows could conceal stories that defy comprehension. The king cobra, Ophiophagus hanna, celebrated as the world's longest venomous snake, asserts its dominance in Southeast Asian habitats, measuring up to an impressive 18 feet with its distinctive hooded neck and sleek appearance. While typically avoiding confrontations with humans, instances of territorial defense can result in unfortunate encounters. Despite the inherent risks, this did not deter Irma Blue, a 29-year-old Indonesian pop singer renowned for her audacious performances, often featuring pythons draped around her neck. The historical backdrop of individuals performing with snakes extends to ancient cultures, entwined with religious and mystic practices. In the contemporary era, this tradition has metamorphosed into entertainment, with performers using various platforms to exhibit their fearlessness. However, a heightened awareness of responsible practices and animal welfare is emerging, acknowledging potential risks for both performers and the snakes involved. Irma, accustomed to using pythons, decided to incorporate a king cobra named Rianti into one of her performances. Notably, the cobra was rumored to have undergone defanging, an illicit and ethically controversial procedure aimed at removing the snake's venomous fangs. This was considered a precautionary measure to mitigate potential risks and ensure Irma's safety in case of unexpected circumstances during the performance. Irma, midway into her performance, accidentally stepped on the snake, triggering a natural defensive reaction. The cobra, feeling threatened or in pain, responded by biting Irma, gripping tightly and injecting venom into her thigh. A snake handler had to intervene, pulling the venomous serpent away from her. Irma, displaying both determination and a lack of awareness of the potential consequences, decided to continue her performance for an astounding 45 minutes. Despite the venom coursing through her veins, she not only entertained the crowd but also refused any treatment for the snakebite, including the administration of an antidote. Whether perceived as courageous or a self-imposed death sentence, Irma's unwavering commitment to her craft became a poignant part of her final performance. Cobra venom, known for its complex composition, introduces neurotoxins that induce paralysis, cytotoxins causing damage to tissues and blood vessels, and hemotoxic properties leading to coagulation abnormalities. These multifaceted effects can manifest as spontaneous bleeding, clotting disorders, and fluctuations in blood pressure, potentially culminating in shock. It is imperative for individuals bitten by venomous snakes like Irma to seek swift medical attention to counteract these venom-induced complications and enhance the chances of survival. In Irma's case, the refusal of treatment underscores the intricate balance between determination, artistic dedication, and the inherent risks associated with handling venomous creatures. During an electrifying 45-minute performance, Irma experienced a sudden and alarming medical incident, characterized by violent vomiting and distressing seizures. Following this unexpected turn of events, she tragically collapsed on the stage floor. Swift emergency measures were implemented, and Irma was promptly rushed to the hospital. Despite the dedicated efforts of the medical team, her condition proved irreversible, and she was pronounced deceased. In the quiet countryside of Buttsfield, County Durham, Albert Dryden's self-built bungalow stood as a testament to a man's defiant pursuit of his dream. Little did anyone know that this picturesque scene would transform into a shocking episode etched in British broadcasting history. Albert Dryden, born on May 12, 1940, in Consett, County Durham, was a man whose life journey unfolded as a tapestry woven with eccentricity and legal conflicts. As the fifth of 8 children born to Albert and Nora Dryden, his upbringing in the steel-making town of Consett was shaped by the influence of a strict, clean-living father who worked for the Consett Iron Company. From an early age, Dryden displayed a solitary disposition and an active imagination, often lost in flights of fancy. Academic pursuits were not his forte, with later IQ tests revealing his intelligence to be well below average. In the early 1960s, Dryden appeared in court twice, once for firing rockets and mortars, and another time for threatening local farmers. He even pledged to move to Argentina to pursue his hobbies undisturbed. Despite these legal entanglements, Dryden's passion for weapons endured. In 1982, having been made redundant, Dryden took a pivotal step in realizing his unconventional dreams. He rented a plot of land at Eliza Lane, Buttsfield, where he would construct the bungalow that would later become the focal point of a tragic saga. By 1984, he had purchased the land outright. In the tightly knit community, Albert Dryden stood as a benevolent figure, renowned for his kindness and readiness to assist others. A genuine community man, he devoted his time to repairing children's bikes and addressing various maintenance needs with unwavering generosity. Despite the results of IQ tests, Dryden's ingenuity extended to the construction of rockets of such magnitude that they even registered on the Royal Air Force's radar. Facing the impending demolition of his whimsically named home in a hole, Dryden had meticulously constructed it from the ground up. However, a significant hurdle stood in his way: the absence of planning permission. In the UK, the acquisition of land does not grant unrestricted freedom to implement any desired architectural design. Prospective landowners must seek approval from the local council for their proposed designs. Albert Dryden, undeterred by multiple rejections, persistently applied for approval, determined to build according to his vision. Despite facing continuous refusals, Albert Dryden pressed on with constructing his own projects following unsuccessful appeals. The situation took a dramatic turn when an unidentified informant alerted the council to Dryden's ongoing unauthorized construction activities. This revelation marked the beginning of a series of events that would unfold into a significant drama. The clash with Derwentside District Council reached a pivotal moment, placing local planning officer Harry Collinson at the epicenter of a tumultuous storm. With a tenure dating back to 1974, Collinson was a seasoned council officer, adept at navigating the intricacies of planning and governance. The clash unfolded as two individuals from disparate backgrounds grappled with finding a resolution to the escalating issues. Despite attempts to connect over shared interests in nature, tea sessions and discussions, Collinson remained resolute in his stance that the home needed demolition. The conflict reached its zenith in 1989 when complaints arose about Dryden's bungalow. His creative explanations, ranging from it being a new summer house for his elderly mother to a nuclear shelter and a cattle shed, only intensified the council's scrutiny. Multiple rejected applications followed, leading to a public inquiry, a failed appeal, and the unfortunate passing of Dryden's mother, an event he attributed to council persecution. The amicable understanding between Dryden and Harry Collinson, the council officer, dissipated, replaced by a sense of betrayal. In May 1989, the council's decision became official, ordering the demolition of the property. Despite Dryden's subsequent appeal in January 1990, inspectors ruled in favor of the council, sealing the ominous fate of the unconventional abode. Dryden was given 3 months to demolish the bungalow. Dryden's confrontations with the council escalated, reaching a peculiar climax when a friend hurled a live cockerel at planning officer Harry Collinson during a meeting. In September 1990, the council attended the land to assess whether Albert had demolished the home. Finding it still intact, they gave him another month to comply or face prosecution. Defiant, Dryden refused to comply, leaving the council with no choice but to carry out the demolition themselves. As the media, police, and council prepared for the event, the potential for trouble loomed large due to Dryden's well-known obsession with guns and arms. The police were instructed to withdraw immediately if met with any resistance from Albert, setting the stage for a tense and dramatic confrontation. The forced demolition was to go ahead on the 20th of January, 1991. The BBC was on site, capturing the unfolding drama for Look North, a magazine programme. Dryden, an eccentric character with an obsession for weapons from a bygone era, emerged from under his baseball cap, brandishing a vintage First World War Webley Mac 6 revolver. The scene was surreal, with the gathered press, police, and council officials seemingly unfazed by the firearm, dismissing it as an empty threat. Dryden mentioned that their presence was illegal as he pointed out the active appeal letter on his front gate. However, the appeal Dryden had highlighted had already faced rejection, with the impending arrival of the rejection letter in the next few days. Tensions escalated as Albert engaged in a heated argument over the legality of the house. When Harry asked for entry through the main gate, Dryden adamantly refused, leading to a confrontation. Harry Collinson then warned Albert that they would have to use force to access the property, potentially involving breaking the fence. In response, Harry emphasized that any damage to the fence would be Albert's liability. In a chilling retort, Albert warned Harry, "You may not be around to see the outcome of this disaster. Now you've been warned, and if you had any sense, you would go away." Harry was still persistent in his stance, so Dryden shot Harry Collinson. As the cameras rolled, Collinson fell backward into a ditch. Chaos erupted, and Dryden proceeded to hit him in the face and chest. He also targeted the demolition machine, firing at its internal mechanisms in an attempt to disable it. A police unit swiftly arrived, and Albert Dryden took cover in a caravan, claiming that the property was rigged with landmines and traps. Later investigations revealed that all these threats were fabrications. During the ensuing mayhem, Tony Belmont, the program's presenter, found himself wounded, but managed to report the shocking incident to the camera. A police officer was also shot in the rear end, a casualty of Dryden's desperate attempt to defend his unconventional castle. The subsequent trial in Newcastle Crown Court in April 1992 resulted in Dryden's conviction for Collinson's murder, the attempted murder of solicitor Michael Dunstan, and the wounding of Belmont and PC Stephen Campbell. Despite Dryden's claims of defending his home, he received a life sentence. In prison, Dryden maintained his defiance, showing no remorse in letters to Roy Collinson. His appeal was dismissed, and parole applications were rejected. In 2017, suffering a stroke, Dryden was released on compassionate grounds. His health declined, and on September 15, 2018, he passed away in a care home, leaving behind a legacy of defiance, tragedy, and a bizarre chapter in British broadcasting history. The tale of Albert Dryden, the man who sought to defend his castle with a vintage firearm, had reached its final chapter. Today's story brings us into the heart of a tragic incident that unfolded beneath the surface of the Caribbean waters. It's a story that goes beyond the realms of the strange, dark, and mysterious. It's a sobering account of a scuba diving operation turned catastrophic. Before we embark on this tale, a word of caution. The events to be discussed are deeply distressing, and viewer discretion is strongly advised. We delve into the fateful day that forever altered the lives of a group of professional divers, unraveling an unsettling sequence of events that demands reflection and understanding. Let us navigate through the depths of this tragic story, learning lessons from an unimaginable underwater tragedy that unfolded. On February 25, 2022, Christopher Boudram, a 36-year-old father of three, embarked on a routine day in Pointe-à-Pierre, Trinidad, where he resided. A professional scuba diver with over a decade of experience, Christopher's daily commute led him to Pariah Fuel, a government-owned oil and gas company located just minutes away from his home. Christopher worked for LMCS, a renowned diving company. His responsibilities centered on maintaining the integrity of Pariah's fuel underwater pipelines, which were crucial for the company's oil transport operations. Unlike his routine, this particular day held a unique task: the revival of an inactive pipeline, berth number 6. This pipeline, untouched since 2018, posed an intriguing challenge. Christopher and his 4 colleagues, Faisal Kurban, Yusuf Henry, Kazim Ali Jr., and Rishi Nagasar, familiar faces and close friends, were assigned the job. Little did they know that this routine task would lead to a harrowing experience. The inactive pipeline, designed like a colossal U-shape beneath the ocean's surface, had 2 vertical sections protruding above the water. The U-shaped pipeline between the area where an oil tanker would pull up to offload its oil is called berth 5, and the area where the oil enters the refinery is called berth 6. The divers would need to separate the pipe from the ocean water to access the areas that needed repair. To achieve this, they employed a special habitat or diving bell, an 8-foot by 8-foot cube structure designed to displace water when air is blown inside, creating a dry space and allowing divers to work comfortably underwater without the constraints of their diving gear. Once air was pumped in to push out the water, the men could stand on the ledge to do their tasks. Inside this hyperbaric chamber, they could take off their diving gear and use tools for intricate repairs and maneuvers. As a team, one of their tasks was the removal of an inflatable plug at berth 6, inserted 2 weeks earlier to protect the oil contents of the pipeline and prevent hydrocarbons from escaping. This seemingly straightforward task was set to take an unexpected turn that would plunge the divers into a life-threatening situation. As the divers gathered around the pipe, preparing to remove the plug, they had no idea of the imminent danger. The inflatable plug was supposed to separate 1,200 barrels of oil from the air and ocean water around it. In a routine scenario, the air pressure in the habitat would press down on a heavy column of oil, settling it between the 2 pipe openings at berths 5 and 6. Unfortunately, an unnoticed column of air under the plug, combined with less oil in the pipe than expected, led to a horrifying vacuum phenomenon known as delta P. The moment the plug was deflated, high-pressure air from the habitat rushed down the pipe with unprecedented force, pulling the divers, their tools, and scuba tanks into the 30-inch pipeline. The habitat pressure release triggered a violent influx of ocean water, creating a swirling force similar to the world's strongest vacuum that engulfed the divers in a chaotic dance of air, water, and tools. The GoPro video camera, attached to one of the divers' suits, documented the surreal moments just before they were sucked into the abyss. The situation was horrifying, and the clock began ticking on their survival. In the dark, confined space of the pipeline, the divers fought for breath, disoriented and battered. Miraculously, they found themselves in a temporary air pocket within the horizontal section of the pipeline. The relief, however, was short-lived. Christopher Boudrum vividly described the experience. "All I remember is going down the pipe at unbelievable speeds. I can't hold my breath any longer. It's pitch black. I can't see anything. Your eyes are burning, your ears are ringing, and your body is sore." The irony struck them. The very air pocket allowing them to breathe was the consequence of the swirling water tornado that brought them into the pipeline's depths. As they grasped for breath, the realization dawned that their only chance of survival lay in navigating a series of underwater sections that were flooded and treacherous. As the swirling water settled, the divers found themselves in a pocket of air within the pipeline. The GoPro footage captured the terrifying darkness, the sound of rustling and movement, and the shocking realization that they were alive. They shouted to each other within the pipe, the place that was supposed to be filled with crude oil, but now harbored a glimmer of hope in the form of an air pocket. The divers took a quick inventory, shouting back and forth to confirm that all 5 were inside the pipe together. Disoriented and battered, they faced the daunting challenge of comprehending their location within the 1,200-foot-long pipeline, as long as 4 football fields. The pipe had undulations at weld seams and supports, creating variations in elevation and allowing air pockets to form. They decided to link together and shuffle as a group toward one of the ends. The pipe was coated with thick, slippery oil sludge, and they struggled against the rising seawater level. The challenge was immense. Pitch-black darkness, compressed spaces, and the constant fear of running out of air. Each movement had to be deliberate, each breath carefully managed as they slowly progressed, propelled by the push of their heels against the pipeline walls. The survivors, clinging to the hope of reaching the surface, faced flooded sections where they could only continue by holding their breath. An hour into their ordeal, they encountered a shocking problem. The seawater level was rising. Holding their heads above water, they realized the first in line was only 6 inches from the top of the pipe. Some were seriously injured and wouldn't be able to move much longer. Christopher Boudram and Kazim Ali, the leaders of the group, decided to hold their breath and search for another pocket of air, promising to return with help for everyone. Their struggle led them to a second air pocket, closer to the riser pipe that might lead them out. To their relief, they found 2 scuba tanks in this section, providing the means to escape. However, Kazim's injuries hindered their progress. The decision was made for Christopher to take what was left of the oxygen and make a swim for the end of the pipe to get help. In a narrow 2.5-foot tube, Christopher pushed forward with the tank in front of his body. As he reached the riser end, a frightening thought struck him. What if this was berth 5 and not berth 6? Swimming up nearly 60 feet, he risked running into an inflated plug with no air and an almost empty tank. He said a prayer and pushed off the bottom, making his way to the surface. After more than 2 hours in the pipe, Christopher emerged at the top of the oily water at berth 6. He banged and screamed, desperate to get the attention of the ship team. A searcher finally found him and helped him climb out with a chain. Overwhelmed and exhausted, Christopher explained the situation. There were air pockets in the line, and all the men were still alive and needed help instantly. He was rushed to the hospital, leaving the divers hopeful that the rest of them would be rescued too. Despite attempts to communicate with the trapped men, tapping on the pipe yielded no response. The divers waited for a rescue that never came. This caused the debate surrounding the actions taken by LMCS, Pariah Fuel, Heritage, LMCS's sister company, and the Coast Guard. Claims that Pariah prevented divers from entering the pipe to save the men are countered by assertions that there was no viable plan without risking more lives. Many people agreed that banging sounds were allegedly heard from inside the pipe for nearly 48 hours before stopping. Autopsies were performed, but the exact cause and time of death remain uncertain. It's evident that all the men survived until different times on Saturday, and some may have lasted until Monday. A commission of inquiry in Trinidad and Tobago aims to unveil the truth. The devastating reality is that these men, just a few hundred feet from salvation, experienced a no-rescue attempt that left them struggling in pain and attempting to move themselves to the exit. To conclude this distressing story, let us reflect on the final footage captured by one of the divers, Kazim, moments before the vacuum effect consumed their world. Viewer discretion is advised, as this video offers a glimpse into the horrifying speed at which everything inside the habitat was pulled into the pipeline, sealing the fate of those trapped within. In the quiet neighborhood of Frederick, Colorado, life seemed to flow like any other American dream. Nestled among neatly trimmed lawns and picket fences, the Watts family resided in a modest home, blending seamlessly into the tapestry of their community. Chris Watts, a friendly and unassuming man, worked hard to provide for his family. His wife, Shanann, was the vibrant heart of their household, juggling the responsibilities of motherhood with grace and warmth. Together, they shared the joys and challenges of raising their 2 young daughters, Bella and Celeste. To their neighbors, the Watts family was the epitome of suburban bliss, a picture-perfect representation of the American dream. Their home echoed with laughter and love, and their presence brought a sense of warmth to the neighborhood. As they went about their daily lives, Chris and Shannon appeared to have it all: a loving marriage, beautiful children, and a promising future ahead. They were admired and respected by those around them, their lives a shining example of success and happiness. Little did anyone know that beneath the facade of perfection, darkness lurked, waiting to shatter the illusion of bliss. On August 13, 2018, Shanann Watts, a pregnant woman with sunshine in her smile, returned home from a business trip. Her friend Nicole dropped her off at the house around 1:48 a.m. Inside, Chris, her husband, awaited her with their 2 daughters, 5-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste. But the seemingly ordinary homecoming was the last anyone would see of Shanann and the girls. The following day, alarm bells started ringing. Shanann missed a doctor's appointment, her phone went unanswered, and an unsettling silence hung over the Watts residence. Nicole, filled with a gnawing worry, went to check on her friend. The house was empty, the swing set eerily still. Panic surged through the neighborhood. Calls were made, messages sent, but there was no response. News of the missing family spread like wildfire. Friends, family, and neighbors rallied together. Search parties scoured the area, their hope dwindling with every passing hour. Law enforcement arrived. Shanann's concerned friend and neighbor met with the police, divulging troubling details about Shanann's disappearance. They had returned from a business trip together, and the neighbor had dropped Shanann off at home the previous night. However, Shanann was nowhere to be found. This was deeply concerning, especially considering Shanann's pregnancy at 15 weeks and her missed appointment. Her distress was palpable, evidenced by her refusal to eat or drink. Adding to the complexity of the situation was the revelation that Shanann's husband had disclosed their separation to Nicole earlier that day, unbeknownst to Shanann herself. The neighbor also noted significant observations. Shanann's shoes neatly positioned by the door and her car still parked in the garage. This information heightened the police's concern as they approached the Watts family home to investigate. Encountering a locked door with a passcode, the police attempted to gain access by checking around the back of the house and knocking on the door. However, they needed consent from Chris Watts, who was nowhere to be found. Despite Shanann's friend's earnest pleas for the police to enter the home, the officer insisted that without visual confirmation of a body, they couldn't legally enter the property. Peering through the glass of the front door, the house appeared immaculate, with furniture arranged perfectly as if it were a showroom. After an agonizing wait, Chris Watts, Shanann's husband, finally arrived at the property and greeted the police with a handshake, noticeably ignoring Nicole, Shanann's friend. The police then commenced their search of the home. When questioned by the police about Shanann's potential whereabouts or possible acquaintances, Chris mentioned the possibility that she might be with her parents or out of state. However, the investigation took a sudden turn when Nicole, Shanann's neighbor and friend, approached them, drawing attention to Shanann's phone. Adding to the unfolding drama, a neighbor provided the police with CCTV footage from his outdoor camera. As a crowd gathered to watch, the atmosphere grew tense. This pivotal moment became a turning point in the investigation. Chris, visibly nervous and anxious, watched the footage closely, aware of the scrutiny upon him, especially from the neighbor who had supplied the footage. The footage itself revealed crucial moments. Chris backing his truck into the driveway in the early hours of the morning and loading what appeared to be multiple items into the vehicle. These images heightened suspicions about Chris's involvement. Back at the house, Chris, his face etched with worry, spoke to the media. A neighbor's surveillance footage captured him loading his truck with suspicious items in the early hours of the morning on the day of the disappearance. Phone records revealed cryptic text messages and calls made to his mistress in the days leading up to the incident. Despite his outward displays of grief, Chris's demeanor betrayed a sense of unease, his expressions often appearing rehearsed and detached. When confronted with inconsistencies in his accounts, his responses grew increasingly evasive, further fueling suspicion. In a last-ditch effort to clear his name, Chris agreed to undergo a polygraph test administered by law enforcement. However, his hopes of vindication were dashed when the results indicated deception. Faced with overwhelming evidence and the mounting pressure of scrutiny, Chris's facade finally crumbled. On August 15, 2018, Chris Watts confessed to the unthinkable. He had murdered his wife Shanann in a fit of rage and then proceeded to smother their daughters, Bella and Celeste, before disposing of their bodies at an oil site where he worked. The revelation sent shockwaves through the community, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. The details Chris revealed in his confession painted a picture more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. In the pre-dawn hours of August 13, 2018, when Shanann returned home from her trip, a storm brewed within the Watts household. An argument erupted, the details lost to the darkness of the night. In a moment of unspeakable rage, Chris strangled Shanann, snuffing out the life that pulsed within her and the dreams they once shared. The unthinkable became reality for Bella and Celeste. Awakened by the commotion, they stumbled upon the horrific scene, their tiny eyes witnessing a nightmare no child should ever face. Fear choked their cries as Chris, his face contorted in a mask of fury, turned his murderous rage on his own daughters. With a callous disregard for the innocents he was supposed to protect, he smothered Bella and Celeste, silencing their laughter forever. Consumed by a desperate need to conceal his crimes, Chris embarked on a chilling cleanup operation. He loaded Shanann's body into his truck, the weight of his actions a heavy burden. His daughters, still and lifeless, were placed in the back seat. He drove them to a remote oil field where he worked, a place familiar to him, a place where his dark secret could be buried. One by one, he disposed of their bodies, Shanann in a shallow grave, Bella and Celeste in oil tanks, their tiny forms swallowed by the darkness. The American dream house stood silent, a monument to a family fractured beyond repair. The idyllic facade now a chilling reminder of the evil that lurked within. The trial that followed the horrific events of August 13, 2018, was a harrowing journey through the depths of human depravity. As the courtroom doors swung open, the weight of the crimes hung heavy in the air, casting a pall over all who bore witness to the proceedings. Prosecutors laid out a damning case against Chris Watts, presenting a mountain of evidence that left no doubt as to his guilt. Surveillance footage, phone records, and forensic analysis painted a chilling picture of premeditation and malice aforethought. Witnesses took the stand, recounting the events leading up to the murders and the chilling details of Chris's confession. Their testimony served as a reminder of the innocent lives lost and the devastation wrought by one man's unfathomable actions. In the end, justice prevailed as Chris Watts was sentenced to multiple life terms without the possibility of parole. The judge's words echoed through the courtroom, condemning Chris to spend the remainder of his days behind bars, stripped of his freedom and forced to confront the magnitude of his crimes. Though the trial marked the culmination of a long and painful journey for the victims' families, the scars left by Chris Watts' actions would never fully heal. Their lives forever altered by the senseless violence that tore their loved ones away from them. They were left to grapple with the enduring pain of loss and the enduring legacy of tragedy. The Watts house stood vacant, a monument to a shattered dream. A weed-strewn for sale sign rattled in the wind, a stark contrast to the cheerful welcome mat that once greeted visitors. Life in Frederick moved on, but the memory of the tragedy lingered. Parents held their children a little tighter, whispering reassurances in the dark. The American dream, once seemingly embodied by the Watts family, now bore a chilling caveat. Beneath the picture-perfect facade, darkness could lurk, a constant reminder that appearances can be deceiving. Shanann's family, forever haunted by their loss, found solace in sharing her story. They channeled their grief into advocacy, working to prevent domestic violence and protect vulnerable families. Bella and Celeste's laughter, though silenced, became a beacon of hope, a reminder to cherish the innocence of childhood. As for Chris Watts, he faded into the sterile walls of his prison cell, his life a monotonous echo of the one he so ruthlessly destroyed. The perfect family, the happy home, all a cruel illusion shattered by a single act of unspeakable evil. The story of the Watts family serves as a chilling reminder, a cautionary tale whispered on the wind. Sometimes the greatest monsters wear the most familiar faces. Kalia Louise Titford, a bright and energetic 16-year-old, was subjected to neglect and abuse by her parents, Sarah Lloyd Jones, 39, and Father Alan Titford, 45. While most 16-year-olds are out with their friends or celebrating a sweet 16th birthday, Kalia spent hers locked away and forced to live in squalor, where she met her demise. Kalia, a resident of Newtown, Powys, Wales, attended Newtown High School. She was born with spinal bifida, a neural tube defect that occurs when a baby's spine and spinal cord fail to develop properly in the womb, resulting in a gap in the spine. This condition, often detected early in pregnancy, is believed to be influenced by various factors, including genetics and maternal diet. Spina bifida can manifest in various forms of severity, impacting motor function and mobility. Although she had this debilitating disability, that did not stop Kalia from being fiercely independent, and she was described by teachers as a lovely, funny, and chatty girl who participated in PE lessons and also wheelchair basketball. In 2020, amidst the global lockdown due to COVID-19, following government guidelines, she was instructed to isolate for 6 months to shield herself from the virus. During this period, she heavily relied on her wheelchair as her disability worsened. She had minimal contact with the outside world and limited interactions with anyone beyond her immediate family. This marked the beginning of escalating neglect. During her time of need, it was assumed that her parents were taking care of her, but this was far from the truth. Kalia's weight began to climb to a staggering 22 stone and 13 pounds, and at 145 meters tall, she had a BMI of 70, significantly higher than her peers. This weight gain was fueled by her parents' excessive spending on takeaways and fast food, totaling 1,035 pounds in the 3 months leading up to her death. Despite the pandemic making fresh fruits and vegetables difficult to access for many families, this was clearly not the case, as Kalia's family were spending large amounts on fast food and fizzy drinks, fully aware of her deteriorating condition due to the high-fat, high-calorie meals. Not only was Kalia neglected in terms of nutrition, but she also suffered from physical neglect. She had not showered or used the toilet for around 6 months prior to her death. Bedbound and confined to her room, usually defecating on her bed where urine bottles surrounded her. Kalia often endured extreme discomfort, screaming for help that went unanswered by her parents. The school, deeply concerned for Kalia's well-being, made multiple welfare check calls and inquired about her absence from online lessons. However, Kalia's mother ignored most of these calls and fabricated excuses about her daughter's condition. Furthermore, Kalia's parents declined assistance from Birmingham Children's Hospital and Youth Intervention Services. Before the onset of COVID-19, Kalia attended school regularly until November 2019. However, her attendance declined due to a leg infection and experiences of bullying. Over just 3 years, Kalia's weight surged from 17 stone to 23 stone, a concerning increase that went unreviewed and unrecorded in the 2 years leading up to her death, as reported. Despite Kalia's disability, referrals were made to healthcare professionals in England and Wales, yet it appeared that no care plan was established. When other children resumed school in September 2020, teachers reached out to Lloyd Jones, but she reportedly stated that her daughter was grappling with various health issues. Although Kalia was scheduled to return on October 7th, she expressed feeling too unwell and anxious to do so. 3 days later, 16-year-old Kalia was found deceased. On the morning of October 10, 2020, a distress call was placed by Titford's grandmother. She had called them after her son told her Kalia was deceased in bed. Paramedics quickly responded to the scene and discovered Kylia's lifeless body in bed. The emergency responders were immediately struck by a putrid odor emanating from the room. Kylia's garments were visibly stained with feces and urine, her back displaying a deep purple hue and covered in painful sores. Upon arrival, officers found more than 100 flies stuck to flypaper above the bed where Kylia lay dead. Shockingly, her armpits were nearly blackened, indicating prolonged neglect. Kylia was morbidly obese, with filthy and matted hair. The bedroom was infested with maggots, and old food wrappers and remnants littered the room, alongside an old fridge, a pressure washer, and a greasy hip fryer. In a heart-wrenching discovery, a full cake lay untouched on a table from Kylia's birthday weeks earlier. She had been incapacitated, unable to move herself, while her parents appeared to have offered no assistance. Furthermore, patches of her skin were found to be raw and split, with her tights described as painfully chafed. Upon this alarming discovery, clinical leader of the paramedics, Gareth Wynne Evans, attended the scene, wearing personal protective equipment, including a mask. He found Kylia's body positioned upright, with her head drooped down on her chest. Evan removed the bedding atop Kylia and was hit by a putrid, musky smell emanating from underneath the bedding, which was suspected to be gangrene. A strong odor of rotting flesh engulfed the room as Evans touched Kylia's arm, confirming that she had passed away and rigor mortis had set in. Kylia's death was a result of inflammation and infection in extensive areas of ulceration arising from obesity and its complications, compounded by her immobility due to spina bifida and hydrocephalus. Kylia's parents were arrested and court proceedings began, placing both her mother and father under scrutiny. Kylia's mother pleaded guilty, while her father pleaded not guilty to manslaughter charges. Mr. Titford, aged 45, denied the charges against him, arguing that Kylia's mother, Sarah Lloyd-Jones, was her main caregiver. During the trial, Titford admitted he was a lazy man who should have done more to help his daughter, but expressed discomfort in caring for her once she reached puberty. The prosecution argued that he could not absolve himself of parental duties by shifting all responsibility to the other parent.
I do not accept that either defendant has shown remorse that should count as significant mitigation. Alan Titford pleaded not guilty, and even to the author of the pre-sentence report blamed his partner and even his daughter.
The court heard that Kylia was a vulnerable girl who relied on others to care for her well-being. She suffered from spinal bifida, resulting in limited sensation and mobility from the waist down, making her a wheelchair user from a young age. The prosecution argued that Kylia's death resulted from the failure of both her mother and father to fulfill their duty of care towards her health and welfare. This included neglecting her nutritional needs, mobility, ensuring a clean and hygienic living environment, and seeking appropriate medical assistance when necessary. The prosecution highlighted that the national COVID lockdown starting in March 2020 concealed the severe neglect from outside scrutiny. During this time, Kylia was bedridden, living in unsanitary conditions and suffering from inflamed and ulcerated skin. Prosecutor Caroline Reese KC stated that by the time of her death in October 2020, Kylia was living in conditions deemed unfit, even for animals, resorting to using puppy pads on her urine-soaked floor for toileting. This lack of duty of care created an evident and grave risk of death, as emphasized by the prosecution in court. Prosecutor Caroline Reese KC stated, Kylia sent a series of tragic messages to her mum as she pleaded for help to clean her leaking legs and to get rid of baby flies landing on her. Kylia repeatedly told her mother she was concerned about her legs, but Lloyd Jones replied, "For FK's sake." One message sent on September 12, 2020, just 1 month before her body was found, showed Kalia saying to her mum, "My leg is leaking." Her mum replied, "For FK's sake, hang on," before Kalia pleaded, "No mum, it's leaking." Kalia also messaged her mum just 2 weeks before her death to plead for help getting rid of flies in her room, the court heard. She said, "It's little baby ones landing one me," while her mum replied, "They like you, LOL," but Kalia said, "No mum, they are annoying." The court heard Kalia also messaged her mum days earlier to say, "Can you come and check I haven't pooed in a minute because it stinks?" The response from her mum was, "FFS," before Kalia replied, "Why do you get mad? It's not my fault." 2 months before she died, Kalia's older sister, Sophie, sent a message to Lloyd Jones raising concern about Kalia's room. "Not being funny, but you need to sort Kalia's room. It's a mess," wrote Sophie on 20th August 2020. "Nothing can be found because of what a mess it is. It's disgusting. Kalia had a bag of piss left from this morning and yesterday on the floor. It's disgusting, Mum." After a 3-week trial at Mould Crown Court, Alan Titford, the father, was found guilty in January 2023. This marked the first instance in the UK where parents were prosecuted for manslaughter due to neglecting their child's weight. Typically, cases involving childhood obesity are handled in family courts. However, the neglect of Kalia's weight was just one of the prosecutable failures in their parental duty of care as outlined by the court. These included failing to ensure Kalia's physical activity, maintaining a safe and hygienic environment, meeting her health needs, and seeking necessary medical assistance. Sentencing took place at Swansea Crown Court on March 7th before Judge Martin Griffiths, whose remarks were televised. This marked Wales' first televised court hearing following a recent change in the law, allowing cameras in courtrooms. Alan Titford was sentenced to 7 years and 6 months, and Sarah Lloyd-Jones received a 6-year sentence. Judge Griffiths highlighted the equal responsibility of both parents. The Solicitor General referred the case for review under the unduly lenient sentences scheme. After a full hearing on May 19, 2023, the Court of Appeal increased their sentences. Sarah Lloyd-Jones's term was extended to 8 years and Alan Titford's to 10 years. Solicitor General Michael Tomlinson, KCMP, stated, "This case was deeply distressing, and my thoughts are with all who cared for Kalia. The decision to extend the sentences sends a clear message that child abuse will not be tolerated." For many of us, the hospital is a sanctuary where we entrust our safety and find solace when we're unwell. Yet some may harbour apprehension or fear about going there, and I can empathise. The following account of hospital incompetence is just one among numerous distressing stories. In 2012, an elderly Brazilian woman from Rio de Janeiro in Brazil named Hilda Vitor Maciel found herself in a tragic situation while hospitalised. A stroke had left her paralysed on the left side of her body and reliant on a feeding tube to meet her nutritional needs. During her stay at the Santa Casa de Barra Mansa Hospital, a medical mishap occurred that may have cost her life, according to a medical malpractice and wrongful death lawsuit filed by her family. Maciel was mistakenly administered soup through an IV attached to her arm instead of her feeding tube. The nurse mistakenly injected soup into the catheter in Maciel's hand instead of through the feeding tube inserted into her nose. Promptly after the accident, Dos Santos recounted, "My mother's heart began to beat wildly. This error, witnessed by Maciel's daughter Ana Ruth Maciel dos Santos, led to distressing consequences. Despite signs of improvement in Maciel's stroke symptoms prior to the incident, she tragically passed away half a day later at the age of 88. The hospital admitted to the mistake, but refused to acknowledge the soup injection as the cause of Maciel's death, despite findings from her autopsy, as reported by Fox Law Philly. The family suspected the soup dosing as the culprit, expressing outrage and a demand for justice to prevent similar incidents from occurring in the future. While a doctor's report suggested that Maciel likely died from a pulmonary embolism, a condition where a blood clot obstructs a lung artery, her official cause of death on the death certificate remained undetermined. Due to the uncertainty surrounding her death and the recent medical error, the hospital ordered an autopsy. Hospital Administrative Director Álvaro Afonso Torres de Freitas stated, "Due to the misunderstanding and the doubt that remained, we decided to investigate." The hospital initiated an internal process and collaborated with Maciel's relatives to facilitate the autopsy. Pulmonary embolisms can be caused by various factors, including blood clots, tumors, air bubbles, or bone marrow fat from broken bones. What do you think about this true story? Should the hospital be held liable for such a mistake? Why was a trained nurse unable to distinguish between a hand catheter and a feeding tube? And do you think that was the cause of her death? Please comment below. Crime Watch, formerly known as Crime Watch UK, stands as a renowned British live television show crafted by the BBC. Its primary objective is to reconstruct significant unsolved crimes, urging the public to share vital information to aid in their resolution. More than just a news programme, it resonated deeply with British history, providing citizens with a platform to actively participate in solving crimes nationwide. With the option for viewers to call in with new information and live crime updates, the show instilled a sense of involvement and urgency, fostering the belief that crimes were actively being solved as they were. Jill Dando, born on November 9, 1961, was an English journalist and TV presenter. A prominent presenter on Crime Watch UK, she played a pivotal role in the show's success. Through her engaging presentation style, she effectively connected with the audience, making her and her fellow presenters recognizable figures. Their presence on such a high-profile British TV show further solidified their status as household names. Jill spent most of her career at the BBC, where she earned awards for her excellent presenting skills and friendly personality. Jill was born in Weston-super-Mare, Somerset, at Ashcombe House Maternity Home. Her parents were Jack Dando and Winifred Mary Jean Hockey. Jill had one brother, Nigel, who worked as a journalist for BBC Radio Bristol until his retirement in 2017. Starting as a trainee reporter at the local Western Mercury, where her family already had roots, she quickly proved her mettle. Transitioning to the BBC after 5 years, she made her mark, starting with radio before moving on to regional television. Her move to national television in London in the late 1980s was a significant leap, where she became the face of short hourly news bulletins on BBC One and BBC Two. On the morning of April 26, 1999, at 37 years old, Jill Dando departed from Farthing's home in Chiswick. She returned alone, driving to her house at 29 Gowan Avenue, Fulham. Although she owned the property, she was in the process of selling it and didn't visit frequently. Her purpose on this visit was to retrieve contract documents faxed by her agent, John Roseman. As she reached her front door around 11:32 a.m., tragedy struck. She was suddenly seized from behind. The assailant forcefully brought her to the ground, shooting her once in the left temple just as she was about to unlock her front door. The shot was fatal, instantly ending her life. Dando was shot once in the head. Her body was discovered about 14 minutes later by her neighbour. Helen Doble, who recounted crossing the road on Gowan Avenue that day, observed Jill's car parked and glanced at her front door. She was shocked immediately by the scene in which she had encountered. She frantically contacted the police and ambulance. At the onset, scrutiny focused on individuals within Dando's personal circle, as only a handful were aware of her intention to visit her Gowan Avenue house that day. Her agent, John Roseman, initially came under suspicion due to his knowledge of Dando's visit to collect faxes he had sent her. However, Roseman was able to convince detectives of his innocence. Similarly, Bob Wheaton attracted attention as a former romantic partner, particularly since Dando had transferred funds to him towards the end of their relationship. Wheaton maintained that this transfer was a gift, successfully persuading investigators of his innocence. As the investigators looked for more clues, the forensic analysis of the cartridge case and bullet recovered from the crime scene indicated that the weapon used may have been a workshop-modified replica or decommissioned firearm. It was deemed unlikely that a professional assassin would utilize such a low-quality weapon. This compelled detectives to seek a revised profile, honing in on individuals displaying wannabe characteristics, an inclination towards isolation, potential mental health challenges, and signs of a disturbed mindset. Amidst this search, one individual caught their attention. With no substantial leads to pursue, law enforcement redirected their focus towards Barry George, who resided approximately half a mile from Dando's home. George's background aligned with the profile under scrutiny. Police uncovered various pieces of evidence implicating George. He was observed attempting to flee the area in a taxi after the murder. He had maps of Dando's street, magazine cuttings featuring Dando, and paraphernalia associated with weapons. An intensive look into Barry's criminal background revealed George's criminal history is intricate and extensive. He began his illicit activities by assuming false identities, using the pseudonym Paul Gadd, the real name of singer Gary Glitter, during his school years. His first encounter with the law occurred in March 1980, when he was arrested for impersonating a police officer, complete with false warrant cards. In addition to his impersonation schemes, George's criminal behavior extended to fraudulent claims, such as falsely asserting himself as the winner of the British Karate Championship. Moreover, George faced charges of indecent assault on multiple occasions, leading to a suspended sentence for one count and a prison term for another. He was also convicted of attempted rape and served a substantial portion of a 33-month sentence. Further complicating his criminal history, George was found in suspicious circumstances in the grounds of Kensington Palace, wearing a balaclava and carrying a poem addressed to Prince Charles. His personal relationships were also fraught with violence, as evidenced by reports from his Japanese spouse, Itsuko Toide, who described their marriage as violent and terrifying. Following surveillance, George was apprehended on May 25, 2000, and formally charged with Dando's murder on May 28 of the same year. Barry George's involvement in the murder of British journalist Jill Dando came under intense scrutiny. Following his conviction, the public, as well as close relatives and friends of Dando, were skeptical that a guy of Barry's intellect could carry out such a crime, especially in broad daylight. The investigation initially focused on the possibility of Dando being targeted by a stalker. The only confirmed sighting of the killer, described as a 6-foot-tall white man around 40 years old, fitting George's general description. Forensic analysis of George's coat discovered a single particle of gunshot residue, which raised suspicion. This particle contained the same elements of gunshot residue found at the crime scene, including on a cartridge case and head hair. In 2002, George appealed with his legal team arguing the reliability of the forensic evidence. This appeal was dismissed. 4 years later, in March 2006, George's legal team appealed his conviction, presenting new medical evidence indicating his incapacity due to mental disabilities. Neuropsychiatrist Michael Kopelman disputed prosecution claims of personality disorders, stating George's inability to respond adequately. Kopelman's testimony emphasized George's lack of calculated behavior, casting doubt on his capacity to commit the crime in question. The defense also argued that 2 new witnesses claimed they saw armed police during George's arrest, contradicting official reports stating otherwise. The Metropolitan Police denied having armed officers present during George's arrest. Additionally, the defense contested the scientific evidence linking George to the crime. They suggested that the presence of armed officers could have led to contamination. The Criminal Cases Review Commission referred George's case to the Court of Appeal on June 20, 2007. Despite being refused bail, George's hearing began on November 5, 2007. The defense argued that the gunshot residue found on George's coat was not conclusive evidence, potentially contaminated during police evidence photography. On November 7, 2007, the Court of Appeal reserved judgment, and on November 15, 2007, they allowed the appeal, quashing George's conviction. The court reasoned that the prosecution heavily relied on 4 categories of evidence, including witness identification, alleged lies by George, an alleged false alibi, and the single particle of firearm discharge residue. Consequently, the Court of Appeal determined that if this evidence had been presented to the jury during the trial, George's conviction may not have occurred. Therefore, a retrial was ordered, and George remained in custody without applying for bail. The retrial began officially on June 9, 2008. The prosecution presented minimal scientific evidence due to the inadmissibility of forensic evidence related to gunshot residue, so they had limited to nothing left to present. George's character assessment was allowed, enabled by the Criminal Justice Act 2003. In his defense, William Clegg QC highlighted testimony from 3 women from Hafad, which conflicted with the prosecution's timeline of events. Despite witnesses possibly citing the heading in a different direction after the shooting, they failed to identify George in an identification parade. Ultimately, the trial concluded with George's acquittal on August 1, 2008. On March 22, 1993, 4 teenagers died during a school trip. 31 years ago, Sylvia and Noel Dunn were at home watching the news. The activity centre where they had sent their oldest son on a school trip suddenly became the headline news. Their son, Simon, was supposed to be having a great time at St Albans Centre, an adventure holiday camp in Lyme Regis. However, Simon and 3 of his friends did not return home. Sensing that something was seriously wrong, Sylvia and Noel were told to go to Southway Community College, where their 16-year-old son was in 6th form. When Simon's name was called out in the school hall, Sylvia was taken to another room. It was there that she learned the heartbreaking news that Simon had drowned during a canoe trip. At the same time, Noel, who had gone home to check the answering machine for updates, saw a police car pulling up outside their home. Given his experience in the police force, he knew that this could only mean one thing: his son was no longer alive. The couple's lives plunged into darkness, and chaos ensued. They were driven by an officer to a hospital over 70 miles away, where chaos unfolded as press reporters gathered outside, eager for updates on the tragic events that not only shook Plymouth, but the entire country. To avoid intrusion, Sylvia and Noel were guided through the back entrance. When the commotion settled, Noel turned to the officer who had driven them and inquired about the number of students who had lost their lives. Recalling the events 31 years later, Noel said, "I asked if other children were involved, and he replied, 'I can't tell you, Noel.' I pressed on, asking, 'How many more? 1, 2, 3? When I reached 4, he said, 'I didn't tell you that.' Later, it was revealed that Dean Sayer, age 17, and 16-year-olds Claire Langley and Rachel Walker also perished in the disaster. While pupils Emma Hartley, Joanna Willis, Samantha Stansby, and Marie Rendell, along with teacher Norman Pointer and instructors Karen Gardner and Anthony Mann, were rescued, Simon, Dean, Claire, and Rachel were swept away. Rachel would have celebrated her 17th birthday just 2 days later. Survivors later shared that Simon used humor and songs to lift spirits during the struggle to stay alive. Known for his prankster nature and wicked sense of humor, Simon led others in singing a chorus of 8 red canoes sinking in the water to the tune of 10 green bottles as they waited for rescue. However, reality struck for Sylvia and Noel when they found themselves in the same room as their deceased son just hours later. Initially, thinking it was a tragic accident, it became clear in the following months that the true events of that day were far from accidental. It was corporate manslaughter, and the owner of the company would face imprisonment. In the year 2018, Sylvia and Noel relocated to Buckland, Monacorum. Their 2 younger children are now grown, and between them, they have 6 children. Despite the passage of time, they carry the enduring pain of losing Simon in an unjust, tragic, and preventable situation. While speaking in the year 2018, Sylvia remarked, "It's been years, and a lot has happened in that time. But when I think of Simon, it feels like no time has passed. I can't believe it's been 25 years because the pain is still raw." Recalling the moment they were told about Simon's death, she described entering a state of darkness and overwhelming noise. "It was horrible. You just zone into this horrible blackness and horrible noise, and I realized it was me making it. It was awful, your worst nightmare. I can remember everything from that day, minute to minute, but the 2 weeks after, I remember nothing. It's just blank." Over the years, the darkness has faded, and Sylvia and Noel now live by Simon's own words. He had visited neighbours who had lost a child before he went away and questioned why they were always sad and negative. Sylvia remembered their conversation. "I don't know what it is like to lose a child," she had told him, to which he responded, "Their son wouldn't want them to be like that. Life is too short. Life is for living." These words serve as a guiding light for Sylvia and Noel during tough times. Sylvia emphasized, "When I'm down, we've got to get on for him. It's so amazing that he said that before he went away." Amid their grief, they find strength in Simon's philosophy and strive to live their lives in a way that honors his memory. Be sure to give this video a like if you are enjoying the content. Simon's death brought about significant changes, particularly in the form of specific legislation aimed at preventing similar tragedies. Noel expressed, "After it happened and they died, we got a lot of attention. We couldn't go shopping without being recognized. But the most crucial aspect was getting the act in place. So hopefully, it will never happen again." Reflecting on the past, Noel highlighted the lax regulations that allowed individuals with just a few £1,000s and an interest in outdoor activities to set up activity centres without any qualifications. He emphasised, "You didn't need any qualifications to open an activity centre, you just opened it." But as time went on, there were incidents where children died. What brought it home to us was when Simon went away to what we thought was a safe place, a safe environment, and it wasn't. The trial that followed Simon's death brought the issue into the public eye, revealing a shocking lack of qualified personnel overseeing such activities. Noel noted, "People were shocked to find out there was such a lack of people qualified to take people out. The people that took our kids out were 1-star instructors, which wasn't much better than the children themselves." Noel stressed the importance of allowing children to engage in activities while acknowledging the need for proper safety measures. He recalled a conversation with his daughter, who sought advice when her daughter wanted to go on an activity week. Noel's response was clear. "She goes. You can't wrap kids in cotton wool. You've got to let them get out and do things." The tragic events on March 22, 1993, sent shockwaves across the UK. Despite favourable weather conditions, the circumstances quickly turned dire during the school trip. Teacher Norman Pointer experienced difficulties, and student Dean Sayer capsized dangerously close to the shore. The trial that ensued shed light on the inadequate qualifications of those responsible for the students' safety, prompting a necessary re-evaluation of regulations to prevent future tragedies. Be sure to give this video a like if you are enjoying the content. Okay, so Dean thought he could go back when the instructor, Tony Mann, asked. But as they tried to help the teacher, they saw the others were gone. Within 20 minutes, most canoes sank, and the pupils clung to the last one in freezing seas. The center's handyman was supposed to meet them, but by 12:25 p.m., he reported the children missing. A fishing boat found a kayak, and the skipper called for help, marking the start of a tragedy. 7 minutes before that call, the last canoe sank, leaving the children helpless. Mr. Stoddart searched for them, and students Samantha and Emma swam for help. Some became unconscious from cold and exhaustion, far from where they were supposed to be. June Moforth, the school's acting head teacher, got a call at 6 p.m. Teacher John Ellis mentioned a problem, but said the pupils were getting picked up by helicopter. Minutes later, she learned one child had died. Back at the school, they had a list of 8 canoeists, not knowing who died. After 9 p.m., they confirmed Simon Dunn's death and 3 critical conditions. Mrs. Moforth informed parents of the 6th form tutors. 2 hours later, a fax with the list of the dead arrived. After a sleepless night, Mrs. Moforth told the staff at 7 a.m. and spoke to the pupils in assemblies. There were 3 gaps in the A-level English class, something everyone found hard to come to terms with, she said after the tragedy. After the tragedy, the manager of the activity centre was jailed, and a law was passed to hold companies criminally responsible for similar deaths. Parents, with the support of then Devonport MP David Jameson, played a vital role in passing the 1995 Activity Centre's Young Persons Safety Law. The Corporate Manslaughter Act 2007 made it easier to convict irresponsible companies, and it came into force on April 6, 2008. David Jameson, reflecting on the events 20 years later, emphasized the parents' commitment to preventing future tragedies. He highlighted the impact of Lime Bay on the city and the country, with the tragedy narrowly avoiding even greater loss of life due to a matter of minutes and small safety oversights. In the aftermath, St Albans Centre's parent company, OLL, was prosecuted, and the activity centre manager, Peter Kite, was jailed for 3 years in 1994, but released after 14 months. The Devon County Council's report stated that the tragedy simply should not have happened. There were concerns about the law being abolished in 2011, but David Jameson warned against such a move, stressing the importance of regulations for children's safety in activities. He expressed worries about potential dangers if safety checks were neglected, emphasizing the positive aspects of activities for youngsters' team building and character development. The tragic events in Lime Bay on that fateful day in 1993 resulted in a thorough breakdown of the timeline, highlighting the failure to arrive at the intended destination, the search and rescue operations, and the eventual discovery of the survivors and those who did not make it. And with that, we conclude our journey through the tragic events of Lime Bay in 1993. If you've been moved by this story and believe in the importance of safety measures, consider sharing this video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, leave a comment, and hit the notification bell for more content. Our thoughts are with those affected, and let's stand together in advocating for the safety and well-being of our youth. In the neighborhood of Kamisoshigaya, Tokyo, on the night of December 30th, 2000, an event took place that would not only shock the residents of the area, but would also shock the world. What should have been a joyous transition into the new year for the Miyazawa family turned into a nightmare, a night so twisted and unpredictable no one could have seen this coming. The family, consisting of husband Mikio, 44, wife Yasuko, 41, their daughter Niina, 8, and their son, Rei, 6, lived in the suburbs of Setagaya. On the night of December 30th to the 31st, at around 11:30 p.m. to 12:05 a.m. midnight, an assassin would enter the family's home and wreak havoc. Brazen and confident in their crime, the assassin would stay in the home for hours, speculated to be from 2 to 10 hours after the crimes had been committed. The intruder gained access into the family's home via an open window. He accessed the Miyazawa residence by scaling a nearby tree and silently removing the window screen. Quiet as a shadow, they crept into the second-floor bedroom where young Ray lay innocently. Chilling and cold-hearted, the assailant would eliminate young Ray via means of suffocating the lungs of air. Detecting a struggle and menacing sound coming from the second floor where young Ray slept, Mikio rushed up the stairs frantically. He was met by the assailant holding an sashimi bocho knife. Undeterred, he fought the assailant, resulting in a struggle of power. Mikio was pierced in the head with the sashimi bocho knife. The force in which it was struck was so strong that it broke off in his skull. The two males now out of the way, the intruder then hunted down Yasuko and Niina in a more than terrifying ordeal, attacking them with the broken knife and then a santoku knife from the house to eliminate them. The assassin, unfazed by their merciless actions, remained in the home for many hours, leaving DNA evidence all around the home, taunting or maybe even mocking the police. After the brutal attack, the killer patched up their own wounds using the family's first aid supplies. Exhausted, they crashed on the living room sofa upstairs for a nap and unplugged the phone line. The killer used the family's computer, ate 4 ice creams from their refrigerator, 4 bottles of barley tea, and even used the family's toilet, defecating in it without flushing. The house was torn apart. Drawers were rifled through, papers scattered everywhere, and even some were dumped in the bathroom. The assassin grabbed some cash but left most behind. On the sofa, they left behind a chilling collection of items: a knife, a scarf, a bag, a sweater, a jacket, a hat, gloves, shoes, and 2 handkerchiefs, each carrying the weight of the night's horrors. Yasuko's mother, Haruko, arrived at the home the next morning as she had become suspicious after trying to call the home. But the line was cut. She was unfortunately the first person to discover the gruesome murders. With all the evidence left in the residence, the police should have had an easy time catching the criminal. However, this was not the case. The assassin, estimated to be around 170 centimeters tall and thin, born between 1965 and 1985, likely possesses right-handed dominance, evident from the wounds inflicted on the Miyazawa family. Despite leaving behind DNA and fingerprints, none match existing criminal records, hinting at a lack of prior offenses. Analysis of the perpetrator's blood revealed type A. His DNA also suggested a male of mixed-race descent. Maternal DNA points to European heritage, possibly from a South European country, while paternal DNA indicated East Asian origins. Furthermore, clues abound in the clothing and items abandoned at the scene. The killer's dietary habits, evidenced by traces of string beans and sesame seeds in their feces, offer insight into their recent activities. Their apparel, including a distinctive sweater, was traced back to Kanagawa Prefecture, while sand found in a hip bag originated from specific locations in the Nevada desert and a skate park in Japan. Despite these detailed leads, authorities remain unable to identify or apprehend the elusive suspect. The investigation into the Setagaya murders stands as one of Japan's largest, involving over 246,000 investigators who meticulously gathered over 12,500 pieces of evidence. Despite this exhaustive effort, the case remains unresolved, with all evidence securely held by authorities. As of December 2021, a 20 million yen reward still stands for any information leading to the arrest of the killer. Since 2015, a dedicated team of officers, numbering up to 40 at one point, have been tirelessly working on the case. The Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department, TMPD, continues to honor the victims with annual memorial ceremonies at the Miyazawa house, a somber reminder of the tragedy that befell the family. However, the investigation has not been without controversy. In 2015, an eerie, the sister of victim Yasuko Miyazawa, filed a complaint against a TV Asahi documentary alleging misrepresentation of her sister's character. Despite such challenges, the pursuit of justice persists. In 2019, plans were announced to demolish the Miyazawa house due to structural concerns, though this decision was met with opposition from the family and supporters. Despite reassurances that the demolition would not affect the investigation, the emotional attachment to the site remains palpable. In 2022, the podcast Faceless, hosted by author Nicholas Obregon, offered a fresh perspective on the case, questioning established narratives and shedding light on overlooked details. Through interviews with former TMPD chief Takeshi Tsuchita and Setsuko Miyazawa, the search for answers continues. Despite the passage of 23 years, the TMPD remains vigilant, renewing appeals for public assistance. The heinous nature of the crime, in which Mikio, Yasuko, Nina, and Rei were brutally murdered in their home, continues to haunt the consciousness. The killer's meticulous actions, including post-crime computer usage and consumption of ice cream, paints a chilling picture of their calculated depravity. Despite extensive analysis of the killer's clothing, accessories, and other circumstantial evidence, no suspects have been identified. The killer's unique genetic profile, a blend of European and Asian ancestry, remains a crucial clue. With over 280,000 officers involved and thousands of public tips received, the hunt for justice presses on, fueled by the unwavering commitment of law enforcement. Until the day the perpetrator is brought to justice, the Setagaya murders will continue to cast a long shadow over Japan's criminal history. Jesse Kerchevsky, born on February 18, 1984, lived in Pewaukee, Wisconsin, and worked as a dental assistant. In 2016, she became a carer for a family friend named Lynn Hernan. This job would be her last, as her thirst for greed would consume her morals entirely. Lynn Hernan, a 62-year-old hairstylist, faced numerous health challenges, including chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. Residing in Meadowgrass Circle, she relied on Jessie, a hands-on caregiver who visited her daily to assist with various tasks. Over time, Jessie was entrusted with power of attorney, granting her full control over Lynn's financial affairs. On Wednesday, October 3, 2018, at 4:55 p.m., Jessie made a distress call to the police, reporting Lynn's unconscious state. Rushing to the scene, officers discovered Lynn deceased in her recliner with crushed pills scattered all over her chest and on a nearby plate. At first glance, it appeared to be a tragic overdose, a sad end to a life besieged by health challenges. But beneath the surface lurked something far more sinister. Jessie proceeded to tell officers that Lynn hadn't been herself lately, stating she had been throwing away bills and claiming that she could not trust the hospital as they were trying to steal all her money. Additionally, she had told the police that Lynn had experienced thoughts of self-erasing due to her health condition and had voiced distrust towards the hospital, claiming they were withholding information and expressing a desire to avoid nursing homes. Jessie also mentioned her routine of checking Lynn's pills, noting inconsistencies in consumption, suggesting Lynn may not have been adhering to prescribed medication. Despite these explanations, the police found no cause for suspicion. However, Lynn's family members grew concerned when they discovered Jessie inherited Lynn's entire estate after her death, an unexpected turn of events that raised suspicions. As Jessie's greed became apparent, she began selling off Lynn's belongings, a move seen as peculiar given the circumstances. In January 2019, the autopsy results shocked everyone involved. The Waukesha County Sheriff's Office reopened the investigation roughly 3 months after Hernan's death, when the toxicological report showed Hernan had a fatal dose of tetrahydrozoline, the main ingredient in over-the-counter eye drops, in her system. This revelation prompted authorities to reclassify her death as a homicide. Jessie was promptly informed of these findings. During the subsequent inquiry, investigators raised suspicions about the crushed tablets found at the scene, suggesting they may have been staged to simulate an overdose. They noted the absence of any eye drop packaging in Lynn's home, which cast doubt on Jessie's explanation. Initially, Jessie insisted that Lynn had purchased large quantities of eye drops and named a specific brand, vehemently denying any involvement in Lynn's death. She also claimed ignorance regarding the potential use of eye drops as a lethal poison. However, as investigators pressed further, Jessie's story evolved. She admitted to witnessing Lynn mix the eye drop solution into water bottles with vodka, which Lynn then consumed. This revelation added a chilling layer to the investigation, implicating Jessie in a potentially premeditated act of poisoning. Despite her changing narrative, Jessie continued to maintain her innocence. Upon delving into Lynn's financial records, authorities uncovered alarming discrepancies. Approximately $290,000 had been siphoned from Lynn's accounts over an extended period, with evidence pointing to Jessie's involvement. Transactions revealed a pattern of financial exploitation, including gambling activities and the unauthorized opening of credit cards and retail accounts in Lynn's name. Following legal proceedings, Kuchevsky was convicted of 1 felony count of first-degree intentional homicide and 2 counts of theft, each involving movable property valued at over $10,000 but less than $100,000. Sentencing is scheduled for 1:30 p.m. on December 7th. Jessie received a life imprisonment sentence with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Additionally, she was handed down consecutive 5-year sentences for each theft charge. Despite the overwhelming evidence presented during the trial, Jessie persists in asserting her innocence. In the quiet streets of Fulham, a story unfolded that would haunt the neighbourhood for years to come. It all began with a young estate agent named Susie Lamplugh, a spirited and ambitious woman who was passionate about her work. Like any other typical day, Susie had a series of appointments scheduled to showcase houses to potential customers. However, on the particular day, fate had something different in store for Susie. Susie maintained an organised office diary to manage her appointments and keep a record of potential clients. Within its pages, it had an entry, 1245 Mr. Kipper, 37 Shells Road, OS, indicating that the meeting was arranged to occur outside the property. As the clock struck 12:45, Lamplugh stood outside 37 Shells Road, waiting for her mysterious client. Witnesses in the vicinity saw her, confirming her presence at the appointment location. A passerby noticed her in the property's gateway at 12:50, anxious anticipation in her demeanour. Then, 10 minutes later, the house next door heard footsteps and glanced out to see Lamplugh and a man departing from number 37, their eyes fixed on the property. More witnesses came forward corroborating the pair's presence outside the house. One observant man noticed something peculiar. The man held a bottle of champagne adorned with ribbons. This images would later lead to the creation of an identikit of the man. Soon after these chilling scenes continued to unravel, witnesses reported seeing Lamplugh and the man climb into a car. The neighbour believed he heard them quarrelling before they embarked on their journey. All this information provided the description of the mysterious man as the image began to take shape. A white male aged between 25 and 30 with a dark complexion and swept-back dark hair, he was impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit possessing an air of a public schoolboy type. Some even suspected that he may have had a broken nose. Later on, another sighting emerged. A couple spotted between 2:30 p.m. in the area, deepening the mystery surrounding their interactions. The tension escalated as Lamplugh, seemingly distressed, drove her car erratically away from Shells Road, prompting one witness to swerve to avoid the collision. Susie's white Ford Fiesta bearing the registration B396GAN was discovered in a peculiar state outside the garage opposite 123 Stevenage Road, approximately a mile away from the last known location. Several witnesses throughout the afternoon reported this oddly parked vehicle, raising eyebrows and igniting curiosity. It was Susie's close friend Barbara Whitfield who provided a pivotal clue. At around 2:45 p.m., Barbara spotted Susie driving north along Fulham Palace Road with an unidentified man in her car. She waved to Susie as she cycled past, but the estate agent engrossed in a conversation with her passenger did not notice her friend. Barbara's unwavering certainty that it was indeed Susie added significant weight to her sighting. As the clock ticked towards 3:30 p.m., Susie's colleagues at He Estate Agents began to grow increasingly concerned about her whereabouts. By 4:30, they decided to visit 37 Sherolds Road, the site of her last appointment, but Susie remained elusive. As the afternoon wore on, anxiety deepened, prompting a call to the police at 5:30 to report Susie missing. As darkness fell, the police finally located Susie's car, still parked in the same spot where it had been sighted earlier that day. The vehicle appeared to have been hastily abandoned, with the driver's door ajar, the handbrake disengaged, and the car keys missing. This poor parking job partially encroached upon a nearby garage. Inside the car, Susie's purse was discovered, but her personal keys and keys to 37 Shells Road remained elusive. A puzzling detail emerged as well. The driver's seat was adjusted to a position that Susie herself could not have reached, suggesting that someone else had driven the car. Police began to suspect the involvement of a black left-hand drive BMW. Another witness corroborated this account, mentioning a dark BMW parked near 37 Sherolds Road. Witnesses also recounted seeing 2 white Ford Fiestas parked in that area on the eventful day. Months later, an additional witness emerged, initially dismissed due to a critical error in the description of a blonde-haired woman. This witness reported a chilling encounter: a dark left-hand drive BMW suddenly stopping on Stevenage Road with a woman inside, seemingly struggling with a man and sounding the car horn in a desperate bid for attention. This account further deepened the mystery surrounding Susie's disappearance, and amidst the perplexing clues, investigation ensued. Susie's boyfriend and the male flatmate were questioned by the police, but provided solid alibis, corroborated by witnesses. Her 2-bedroom flat in Putney yielded no notable or suspicious discoveries during the search. Curiously, it was noted in the press that if Mr. Kipper's first name was Dan, the combined name would spell kidnapper. The investigation proceeded in a time before the digital age, with an old-fashioned card index system managing a flood of leads. Susie was only considered a missing person, and no criminals in the area were initially viewed as suspects. 6 months after Susie's disappearance, a breakthrough seemed to emerge when a man reported an abandoned BMW registered to a Belgian man. However, this lead was eventually debunked as the car's owner had a solid alibi and his vehicle had been in Belgium on the day Susie vanished. 1 year later, detectives made a compelling observation. John Cannon, a convicted rapist and later abductor and murderer, had been residing in a nearby prison hostel outside prison Wormwood Scrubs around the time of Susie's disappearance. His troubled history included acts of violence against women. Susie's connection to wine bars and her presence at an outing in Putney visited by Cannon shortly before the disappearance added a chilling layer to this unfolding mystery. At this time, Susie's mother, Diane, voiced her heartbreaking belief that her daughter may never return. The shadows of uncertainty and intrigue continued to loom, leaving unanswered questions and an entire community gripped by the chilling enigma of Susie's Lamplugh disappearance. Rising proudly in downtown Atlanta, Georgia, the Westin Peachtree Plaza Hotel is a majestic skyscraper. Adjacent to the Peachtree Center complex and the former Davison's Macy's flagship store, it boasts an impressive 1,073 rooms. This towering structure ranks as the 4th tallest hotel in the Western Hemisphere and the 30th tallest among all hotels worldwide. Notably, it houses the celebrated Sundial restaurant, renowned for its exquisite blend of classic French and modern culinary delights. However, beneath its splendid exterior lies a somber narrative. The Sundial restaurant is ingeniously constructed on a mechanism that allows it to rotate slowly, resembling the movement of a clock. On April 14, 2017, 5-year-old Charlie Holt was in attendance at the Sundial restaurant, with his family seated at a table. It is rumored by the staff that Charlie left the seated area and began to wander around the restaurant. However, this is disputed by his family. Charlie's head became entrapped in a 5-inch gap between the furniture in the dining area and the wall as the floor rotated. The family's waiter reportedly jumped a staircase to turn off the floor's rotation, and as many as 6 people assisted in the effort to free the trapped boy, who lost consciousness after being pulled free. The boy's father performed CPR on him until the paramedics arrived. The child, who had just turned 5 less than a month before the accident, was transported to Grady Hospital, where he later died of his injuries. Following the tragic incident, attorney Joseph Freed represented Rebecca and Michael Holt, grieving parents from North Carolina, in taking legal action. Their lawsuit challenges initial police reports, claiming that Charlie didn't wander off but got trapped between a booth and a stationary wall as they were leaving the restaurant. Despite their frantic efforts to rescue him, they couldn't free him until a restaurant employee stopped the rotation. As a result, although the restaurant remains open, its rotating feature has been halted indefinitely. The lawsuit also highlights the absence of sufficient safety measures to prevent such accidents, including the lack of an emergency stop mechanism. The settlement, which was for an undisclosed amount, was agreed to by both the Holt family and Marriott International, Inc., the statement noted. Property owners have the legal responsibility to search out and mitigate hazards that can cause a guest to become injured, as Charlie Holt was by a dangerous feature at the restaurant. This next story will be eerily familiar. A gruesome scene from Hereditary could have been inspired by a real-life event. John Kemper Hutchison, a then 21-year-old, and his longtime friend Frankie Brome, 23, were heading back from a night of drinking at a bar. Nights out like this were nothing unusual for the pair. Francis Daniel Brome complained of feeling unwell, and the young men, both incredibly drunk, decided to call it a night. John, completely drunken, decided to drive home, a terrible decision he made that night. Frankie was hanging his head out the passenger's window, emptying the contents of his stomach, whilst John Kemper, the driver, ran off the road and sideswiped a telephone pole support wire, decapitating his best friend. He then drove around 12 miles back to his Atlanta home, early Sunday, and went to sleep in his clothes, leaving the headless body in the truck. A neighbor walking with his baby daughter that Sunday discovered the 23-year-old's headless corpse in the parked truck and called authorities. The head was found in the bushes near the pole. Hutchison was found still in bed, soaked in bloody clothing, fast asleep. He was awoken by the police, who told him of the event. He had no recollection at all and was rumored to be very remorseful. An attorney for the Brome family asked for leniency for Hutchison, who was a childhood friend of the victim. Alcoholics Anonymous counselors also were among the witnesses who spoke on his behalf. Hutchison was jailed on $100,000 bail and was sentenced to 5 years in prison on May 2005. In the peaceful village of Hinterkaifeck, Odd things started to happen, and it made everyone there feel uneasy. It was a time filled with secrets and worries, setting the stage for something terrible that would happen to a family living on a faraway farm. In this remote farmhouse dwelled the Gruber family. Along with their trusted maid, the 6 victims were Andreas Gruber, his wife Cecilia Gruber, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, Victoria's 2 children, Cecilia and Joseph. Life on the farm had been serene and comfortable, but then inexplicable events began to unfold, casting a shadow over their once harmonious existence. It all began with the abrupt departure of the family's maid 6 months before the tragedy. She'd been driven away by strange and unsettling sounds emanating from the attic. Convinced that the very house she served was haunted by a malevolent force, her sudden exit was the first sign that something was very wrong. As the days passed, another enigma surfaced. Andreas Gruber, the head of the household, stumbled upon an unfamiliar newspaper from Munich on his property. Puzzling, he had no recollection of purchasing it, initially chalking it up to the careless postman's mistake. However, the mystery deepened when it became apparent that no one in the vicinity subscribed to this particular newspaper. Another start, and in fact, Andreas noticed that his keys and other belongings around the house started to vanish mysteriously. When he questioned his family about it, none of them claimed to have taken or knew the whereabouts of these missing items. In the days leading up to the tragic event, Gruber confided in his neighbors, revealing that he had discovered fresh tracks in the snow leading from a nearby forest to a broken door in the farm's machine room. But there were no tracks leading away from the room back into the forest, which signaled that someone was staying inside of the farmhouse. As the tension in Hinterkaifeck mounted, Celia Gabriel revealed a disturbing secret to her school friend. She claimed that her mother, Victoria, had fled the farm after a violent argument the night before. Only hours later, Victoria was found in the forest, adding another layer of mystery to the village's growing unease. The stage was set for a horrifying event that would shake Hinterkaifeck to its core. On March 31st, 1922, a new maid named Maria arrived at the farm, unaware of the lurking danger. Maria's sister accompanied her, but left after a brief stay, becoming perhaps the last person to see the family alive. That evening, Victoria, her daughter Cecilia, and her parents Andreas and Cecilia were drawn to the family barn. One by one, they met a gruesome fate at the hands of an unknown assailant wielding a mattock. The brutality didn't end there. The perpetrators moved on to the living quarters, where they murdered infant Joseph and new maid Maria, sealing the fate of the entire family. 4 days passed in the airy silence before the gruesome discovery was made. On April the 1st, coffee sellers Hans and Edward arrived at the farm, but no one answered their knocks. The gate to the machine house was found open, and the family was nowhere to be seen. Alarmed, they left the scene. Cecilia Gabriel was absent from school, and the family skipped Sunday worship, raising suspicion. 4 days passed in the airy silence before the gruesome discovery was made. On April the 4th, assembler Albert Hoffner arrived to repair an engine and found an airy, deserted farm. He heard only the sounds of the farm animals and the dog in the barn, but he couldn't have imagined the horrors that lay hidden within. The truth came to light when Lorenz Schlittenbauer, concerned about the family's absence, sent his son and stepson to investigate. When they found no one, he headed to the farm with others, and the gruesome scene was revealed. The bodies of Andreas Gruber, Cecilia Gruber, Victoria Gabriel, Cecilia Maria Young Joseph lay in the barn and the homestead. The investigation into the heinous crime began, but it was marred with complications. Many people had tampered with the crime scene, moved bodies and even cooked meals in the kitchen. Autopsies revealed that the mattock was likely a murder weapon, but it was nowhere to be found. Money was found in the house, eliminating robbery as a motive. As the police searched for answers, they interrogated various suspects, but the murderer remained elusive. With no clear motive, the investigations led to dead ends, and the case eventually grew cold. Lucy Letby's life began on January 4, 1990, in Hereford, Hertfordshire. She was a cherished only child of her parents, a finance manager and accounts clerk. Lucy's educational journey took her through Alston School and Hereford Sixth Form College. Yet, it was a traumatic birth experience of her own that etched a profound sense of gratitude within her. A gratitude towards the nurses who had saved her life. A close friend who had known Lucy since secondary school revealed the depth of her gratitude. The friend recounted that Lucy's life purpose was deeply intertwined with her desire to repay the nurses who had once saved her life. Everything she did seemed to step towards fulfilling her ultimate goal of becoming a nurse. Lucy's relentless pursuit of her dream led her to the University of Chester, where she became the first member of her family to step into the realm of higher education. Her journey reached its pinnacle in September 2011, when she proudly donned her graduation gown, realizing the dream that she had nurtured since childhood. Friends and acquaintances from her past described Lucy as awkward and geeky, offering us a glimpse into the personality behind the nurse's uniform. In 2012, Lucy Letby commenced her professional journey as a registered nurse at the neonatal unit of the Countess of Chester Hospital. Her role was to provide care for a diverse range of babies, each with unique needs. Her joy came from witnessing the progress of these tiny lives and offering support to their anxious families. Lucy was not just a nurse. She emerged as a fervent advocate for the neonatal unit. She actively engaged in campaigns to raise funds for the neonatal facility at the hospital. Parents noted her willingness to engage in casual conversation, sharing snippets of her life, including her contentment with being single. However, the turning point arrived in 2015. That same year, Lucy became qualified to work with infants in need of intensive care. Strangely, this marked the beginning of a series of inexplicable and tragic events within the unit. Lucy had confided in others about her discontent with non-intensive care work, which she found boring. Instead, she yearned for the action and challenges of the intensive care unit. Astonishingly, as she transitioned to day shifts, the unexplained incidents shifted from occurring during the night to unfolding in broad daylight. Infants were dying unexpectedly, and Lucy was at the center of it all. The signs were ominous. A formal review conducted by a consultant and the lead neonatologist in June 2015 exposed 4 unexplained collapses, all within the same unit. To everyone's shock, 3 of these cases resulted in death, with Lucy present during each tragic event. What makes this even more disturbing is that initially, these deaths were categorized as medical errors by the hospital's committee responsible for addressing serious incidents. If only they had been classified as serious incidents involving unexpected deaths, immediate investigations would have been initiated, potentially altering the course of events. What set these incidents apart was their abnormalities. Prior to this dark chapter, the neonatal unit typically witnessed 2 or 3 deaths a year. Even more perplexing was the fact that these babies failed to respond to resuscitation attempts, a phenomenon that defied medical norms. One could have a misconception, later revealed by Senior Investigating Officer Detective Superintendent Paul Hughes, was that infant collapses on such a ward were usually expected beforehand. However, these cases shattered that belief, as they occurred without any prior prediction, leaving medical experts baffled. In October 2015, a concerned ward manager initiated her own review of the incident, leading to the alarming discovery that Lucy was consistently present on each unexplained collapse and subsequent death. In the same month, the unit's consultants voiced their concerns to the hospital's executives, but these concerns were either met with resistance or simply brushed aside. By February 2016, the lead neonatologist, accompanied by other consultants, embarked on a thematic review, investigating 5 unexplained deaths and collapses within the unit. Their findings pointed to one common factor: the presence of Lucy Letby. The lead neonatologist urgently communicated these findings with the Trust's medical director, sparking a meeting in May 2016. However, despite the mounting evidence, no substantial actions were taken, with the executive team deeming it a mere coincidence. Reports by the mothers and babies reducing risk through audits and confidential inquiries across the UK project Embrace UK revealed an alarming neonatal rate, at least 10% higher than expected, between June 2015 and June 2016. The mortality rate in became aware of difficulties in raising concerns with managers, though they were never informed of the elevated mortality rate. The CQC report identified issues like short staffing and skill mix problems within the unit. On June 24, 2016, following the tragic death of 2 triplet babies, the lead neonatologist finally took matters into their own hands. They called the duty executive, demanding Lucy's immediate removal from the unit. However, the duty executive shockingly insisted that Lucy was safe to work, and the hospital refused to involve the police. In a startling twist, the hospital orchestrated Lucy's return, apologizing for the allegations against her. They even offered her a position at Alder Hey Children's Hospital, shielding her from the looming storm. But the truth could not stay buried. Consultants, guided by the regional neonatal lead, insisted on further investigations. In April 2017, they met with Cheshire Constabulary, launching Operation Hummingbird. The police's focus shifted from natural occurrences to the possibility of inflicted harm. The investigation into Lucy Letby's alleged sinister acts was underway, unravelling a chilling web of deceit within the neonatal unit. The haunting tale of Lucy Letby, the nurse with a dark secret, began to unfold. Despite mounting concerns from medical professionals, action was delayed, and the incidents were initially categorized as medical errors. Alarming neonatal rates were reported, and a hospital visit by the Care Quality Commission uncovered staffing and skill mix issues. Letby's arrest in 2018 led to a thorough investigation spanning her entire career, revealing thousands of exhibits and a meticulous examination of her actions. The trial began in 2022, during which testimonies portrayed Letby as a malevolent force in the neonatal unit. The prosecution suggested various motives, including boredom and a desire for attention, while Letby maintained her innocence. Ultimately, she was found guilty of 7 counts of murder and multiple counts of attempted murder, receiving a life sentence with a whole life order. A stark conclusion to a shocking true crime saga.